it talks about 5 distinct policies. One is the high density development, which is covered under land pooling policy. Second is the low density development stroke recreational stroke educational and social, which is covered under the green development area policy. Then there is the redevelopment of the existing urban infrastructure of Delhi, which is covered under 3 different spatial development programs: TOD, urban regeneration of existing urban areas, and regeneration of rural areas. But that does not justify the delay it has caused so far, because the master plan, as you know, from the year 2007, when MPD 2021 was notified, it's a very strange situation that we have not implemented 2021, but we are not introducing 2041. So this limbo is causing a huge amount of loss, both to the exchequer as well as to the private sector, which had shown great inclination to invest into Delhi.
Some of these unauthorized colonies have already found their way to the banks of the Yamuna, and the urban flooding was a big wake-up call, if not for how quickly we need at least MPD 2041 to be notified. Dr. Chakravarti, your views here. I can understand that, look, you don't want to hurry up anything, but what has been hurried up? We've got the public and the RWA feedbacks. We've looked at it. LG has examined it with the DDA officials. It's been cleared at that level. Mahua says that I think one of the biggest issues, or that's what we hear from internal sources, land pooling is what is being looked into and some other things. My question is, we are already 2 years into a plan which is meant for Delhi's development for the next 20 years. How much can we delay it further?
Well, there could be various reasons for the delay. One could be the lessons learned from the Smart Cities mission and the extensive critique that program received. And there's a chance that all of that learning is going to be brought on board when this plan is made. I actually wouldn't mind the delay so much if it was guaranteed in some way that the resultant plan was going to be a much better plan, or is going to take on board learnings. But I agree with the previous speaker that the delay is not beneficial to the citizens of Delhi. However,
Mr. Balwinder Kumar, let me come to one of the biggest cost of any delay further in Delhi master plan, and I think we'll focus on the unauthorized colonies. What I hear, it could be hearsay because I haven't seen it, that about 50 to 100 plots are getting cut on the peripheries of Delhi, which has been earmarked for land pooling and green development area. And these are just mushrooming. And we know, you as well as having been the vice chairman of DDA, that once an unauthorized area comes up, settlement comes up, it is very difficult to reverse the clock on it.
Absolutely right. In fact, the cause of delay, we were talking about delay in the approval of master plans. This is the main problem, that there are multiple stakeholders and the stakes are very, very high. The problems are extremely challenging in nature. Like if you take traffic or parking or say green area, unauthorized colonies, floodplains, land pooling scheme, TOD, transit-oriented development, all these schemes are extremely complex and number of stakeholders are involved and their stakes are very, very high. That is why this delay is taking place. We must note down that 55% of Delhi population live in unauthorized colonies. 55%. And as per the estimate, by 2050, the percentage will be 68%.
Ramesh Menon, of course it is a complicated process. Any city today which has grown without planning, if you're going to do something with it, is going to be complicated. Here's my question to you. MPD 2041 is just a blueprint of how we should approach various things, various developments, right? Is it written in stone? Can we not keep changing it a little bit? And we will have to, because 20 years is a long time. So then why the delay? Sorry, I'm coming back to it, but I'm just saying that there should not be a delay. We should at least start.
Fair enough. So there is nothing called an ideal plan, right? Cities evolve, thoughts evolve, people needs evolve. So should the plan evolve. But the DDA for the last 15 years is trying to have an ideal plan acceptable to all stakeholders. You see, let me draw an analogy with Singapore in the early 70s was a similar state as Delhi is in today. Look what they have achieved. They were nimble, on the feet, and flexible to change the policies. When I say policy, is not the guiding document, but the operational policies. Even today in Delhi, if the master plan is notified, gazetted, and sent into the public domain, imagine the wealth of investment that the private sector would bring in.
That brings me to another very important point, Dr. Chakravarti, and I will ask Mr. Kumar or not. I don't want to put him in the hot seat, but let me ask you this question. We've always, DDA, like Ramesh said, has been trying to find a perfect plan. What capacity does DDA have? If it is going to be the custodian of at least navigating the Delhi master plan or rolling it out, does it have the capacity, physical and also technical, knowledge-wise? How do we even roll it out? I mean, if at all it's notified before the end of this year.
Well, as I see it, I do not think that the DDA sees itself as an implementing agency. I think they see themselves as an agency that sets out a broad vision. And then the line departments and all of the other agencies are in charge of implementing that vision or aligning their activities with that vision. So I really don't even want to analyze too much whether they have implementation capacity, because that's not what they're out to do. With the planning capacity, one would have thought that after all these decades that they had that. However, this particular plan was largely written in NIUA, which is the consulting agency for this plan. And so now one is led to believe that DDA, at least in their own perception, does not have the capacity to make a plan.
Mr. Balwinder Kumar, from what I want to understand from you is, A, yes, there is an urgency, and we hope that after this discussion, there's some pressure and the notification will happen quick enough. B, if you looked at the draft, did it have the right thought and the right, let's say, framework for Delhi's development? If you can just give us your views on that.
Actually, as I was saying earlier, that challenges and constraints are many. So within those constraints, we have to approve the master plan. Master plan means basically you are visualizing what kind of future the city should have. It means the mix of land use of residential, commercial, institutional, then green area, and then traffic, parking. All these are extremely important components of any urban planning. So as I was saying, since the constraints are many, we don't have adequate road infrastructures. So and the space is also vacant space is not available. So how you will develop parkings? What kind of norm should be there? So if you go into the details, each component is extremely complicated.
I'm hearing that, look, it's so tedious a process that, we might as well not do a planning exercise, because at the end of it, everything is so complicated.
Yes, you are absolutely right that things are not easy, because I have seen in DDA, there are huge complications, but at the same time, there are certain areas where we can still do a lot. like say for example biodiversity parks or say sports complexes. The DDA which has done in last 2 decades, it's a remarkable job.
Okay.
So within those constraints, DDA
Well,
is doing to its best.
Good. Gentlemen, we've run out of time. I think I've got the gist of it, and there are 3 takeaways. Yes, we need the master plan. No, we do not need a perfect master plan. And 3, there are many aspects of development which needn't be part of the master plan, but we can have policies, we can notify them and get private sector money to come in, stop the unauthorized construction and make sure that the government earns revenues. For God's sake, it's losing revenues if it does not have any kind of planning. Thanks so much for joining me. Well, in the words of Draft Delhi Master Plan 2041, Delhi has always been the showcase city of India. And if everyone from the Prime Minister to the Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, Mr. Hardeep Puri, to the Secretary of MoHUA, Manoj Joshi, who you heard at the start of the show, are crystal clear that our cities cannot thrive and flourish unless we have proper planning and urban planners, then why further delay on Delhi Master Plan 2041 or certain aspects of it? Stay with us as we return with Inspire India, where we capture wonderful stories of citizens and groups truly making a contribution to making our cities better.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From 2nd or 3rd week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
"23 years of the big fight." This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From 2nd or 3rd week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, Building.
Plastic, especially single-use plastic, is a massive contributor to the mounting garbage in our cities. And despite a central government ban on single-use plastic since 2022, its use has not reduced in any meaningful way. And the reasons are clear. None of us want to give up on the convenience. Our children bring back posters from school, say no to plastic, but how many of us make that effort of carrying our own bags for daily groceries and vegetable shopping? Unless we stop, this ban will remain on paper. Here's a story of how two committed women in Bengaluru decided to go plastic-free for the wedding of their children.
When Anupama Harish's son wanted to get married, her deal breaker was a plastic-free wedding. This Bengaluru resident has always been an environmental warrior, and she had 3 months to put together a clean, green marriage function.
We keep telling people to reduce plastic and everything, so it was like a challenge for me that I am telling everybody, so my son's wedding has to be, minimum plastic as much, and disposables we were like 100% sure that we won't have even one. So I knew all along that when there is a wedding, it will be no disposables and as less plastics as possible.
The bride's family was quick to resonate with Anupama's cause. The two mothers who love composting, reducing kitchen waste and tending to their garden put their heads together and looked at reusable cutlery, old butter paper to wrap gifts. They also used banana leaves for serving food, which was later used as fodder for cows. They made sure that there was no plastic decoration in the wedding.
We were more than happy, to go ahead with this, and especially when Anupama said, she will look after all the coordination for this, because being on the bride side, I will have a lot of work to do. It was like we were more than happy to go ahead with this.
Anupama took the help of SWMRT, a collective that works on adopting sustainable waste management practices.
Having done a wedding where a bride would call me and ask me how her wedding can be eco-friendly, what I say is there are a lot of youth, young bride and bridegrooms want a green wedding, and that is a very encouraging sign. And from that angle, I had done earlier weddings were more about the bride or bridegroom calling, and here is a mother who wants to make her son's wedding eco-friendly.
More often than not, the couple tying the knot or the immediate families may remain passionate about protecting the environment throughout the ceremony. But when it comes to managing relatives and friends, they may drop the ball.
Some of them would say, people will say something, the steel cups will not be clean and things like that. But then it was a non-negotiable thing, like how Anupama said.
What would have otherwise cost them rupees 1 lakh for paper plates, plastic spoons, water bottles and more, ended up with just rupees 30,000 spent on steel cutlery. And with a person like Anupama who carries a steel cup to buy ice cream for her children, their wedding was a litmus test.
Like I'm saying, my reputation precedes me, so people knew that it was like I was being watched, So it was my friends were like, let's see what you do, all of them, because I give everybody hell for using disposables and unnecessarily getting mineral water bottles. So I was like, I knew what I had to do. So it was e-invites basically.
It was a simple message that they wanted to convey through this wedding. Build awareness on plastic waste, and charity to environment begins at home.
According to media reports, an Indian wedding on an average results in at least around 200 to 300 kilograms of food waste. Bengaluru reportedly produces at least 5,600 tons of waste every single day. If one single wedding can make a marked difference, then the landfills will thank all heavens. With camera person Govind, Pratibha Raman in Bengaluru for NDTV.
Hats off to Anupama Harish and Charulata Ramaswamy. 1,000 guests is not a small wedding to go plastic-free on. We can do it too. If we can get rid of toxic holy colors because it harms our skin, I'm sure we can stop taking plastic bags from our sabjiwalas and grocers, which is seriously harming the planet. See you next week. Goodbye from me.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know. Satya Nadella? Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV, because the only side we're on is yours.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From 2nd or 3rd week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity. Because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and
a shocker coming in from Uttar Pradesh. 2 minor boys tortured. They were forced to drink urine and they were tortured with green chilies. The 3 minor boys were tortured on the suspicion of theft. In violence hit Nu, a dramatic face-off between the police and a CPI delegation. It's a day 4 of the bulldozer action of the Haryana administration. In Nu, the Sahara Hotel, where stones were allegedly pelted from, is razed to the ground. Officials say that all of this is on government land and is illegal. An NDTV exclusive, there's no divide in the NCP. This is what Sharad Pawar has told the Election Commission of India. The Sharad Pawar camp says there's no evidence of 2 NCP factions. This in a response to Ajit Pawar's poll panel plea, staking claim for NCP name and symbol. Tragic news coming in from Pakistan. At least 15 people have been killed in a rail tragedy. Over 15 people dead and 50 injured as nearly 10 bogies derailed in the southern province of Sindh. Our top story this evening, before Parliament resumes on Monday, that is tomorrow, most of the paperwork needed to restore Rahul Gandhi's MP status has been completed. The Supreme Court, remember, stayed his conviction on Friday. Now, the Speaker has told the leader of the Congress party in the Lok Sabha, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, that all the paperwork has been completed and that they will be acting on it. This after Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, in fact, also sought an appointment with the Lok Sabha Speaker. Now, joining us on the phone line, Sunil Prabhu, our senior colleague. Sunil, what really is the road ahead as far as Rahul Gandhi's reinstatement as a Member of Parliament is concerned? Is this likely to also play out in Parliament, as the Delhi Ordnance Bill is also being tabled tomorrow, so it's going to be a hectic session anyway?
That's right, Vedanta. In fact, I think the focus right now is very clear. They would like the Speaker to immediately, as soon and as he's himself conveyed to the leader of the Congress party, that all the papers that are required are in order, and that is the reason why they feel that his Rahul Gandhi's restoration as a member should be done as quickly as he was disqualified. Even though now it is over 48 hours, they hope that on Monday, as the House proceeds, in fact, before that, the Speaker will be able to sign off and restore his membership. Otherwise, they will raise it on the floor of the House, a united opposition, about the fact that members' rights must be protected. There has been a precedent in the Lakshadweep Member of Parliament's case, Mohammed Faisal, who had to wait for over a month and, in fact, had to petition the Supreme Court, and only then the Speaker had then restored his membership. So it's in that same backdrop now that Rahul Gandhi, they don't want to go through that court process, but they will have to do it in case the Speaker refuses to act, and they would like Rahul Gandhi to participate in those important events next week in Parliament, in the no-confidence motion, so as to be able to continue to raise people's concerns and issues which the Congress party has been doing. So what we have been told from informally from the Lok Sabha Secretariat is that everything is in order. The speakers also committed to the leader of the House, and we'll have to just wait for the implementation for that formal order of the speaker signing off, restoring his membership.
Right, Sunisa, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. Remains to be seen how this plays out in Parliament. This also, as the government is set to table the Delhi bill in Parliament, in Raj Sabha, in fact, tomorrow, and the Aam Aadmi Party has also issued a whip to all its members. And moving now to absolutely horrific news coming in from Uttar Pradesh's Siddharth Nagar, where 2 minor boys were made to drink urine. In fact, green chilies were rubbed in their private parts, and they were also forcibly given some unidentifiable injections on just the suspicion of theft. Now, the victims are a 10-year-old and 15-year-old boy. In fact, horrifying videos of the sickening assault showed the boys made to eat green chilies and gulp it down with a bottle filled with urine. In fact, a group of men could be heard abusing them as well and threatening to beat them up if they didn't go through with it. Now, the goons allegedly caught the boys and tied them up, and they were accused of stealing money by the goons, but an absolutely horrific crime coming in from Uttar Pradesh.
आज थाना पथरा बाजार में सोशल मीडिया के माध्यम से 2 नाबालिग बच्चों के साथ कुछ आपत्तिजनक कृत्य का एक वीडियो संज्ञान में आया था। पुलिस द्वारा तत्काल उक्त वीडियो का संज्ञान में लेते हुए गंभीर धाराओं में अभियोग पंजीकृत किया गया तथा अभियुक्त गण में 6 को हिरासत में लिया गया है। समस्त वैधानिक कार्रवाई पूर्ण करते हुए उन्हें माननीय न्यायालय के समक्ष प्रस्तुत किया जाएगा।
हमारे बच्चों के साथ में खरकट्टी चौराहे पे चोरी का इल्ज़ाम लगाया गया है और उसके साथ में इतना घिनौना हरकत की है लोगों ने, यहाँ तक कि गुप्त स्थान में जो हरा मिर्च होता है उसको डाले हैं, पेट्रोल से इंजेक्शन लगाया गया है और पेशाब पिलाया गया है। जो मेन 2 अपराधी हैं वो दोनों भी गिरफ्तार नहीं हुए हैं और हमारा पुलिस से यही कहना है, प्रशासनिक में कहना यही है कि जितना जल्दी हो सके वो दोनों को गिरफ्तार पहले कीजिए या उसके पूरे परिवार को गिरफ्तार किया जाए। अगर वो गिरफ्तार हो जाते हैं, उन्हें कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दी जाए, तभी हम संतुष्ट होंगे पुलिस वालों से, वरना हम पुलिस वालों को दोषी ठहराएंगे।
And when in the past 1 month there has been a rise in such inhuman crimes, in crimes most cruel. In the past 1 month, we've seen several such crimes coming in from states like Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. In fact, in just last month, we saw a man urinating on a tribal in Madhya Pradesh's Sidi. In fact, in another instance, an SC youth was forced to lick spit-laced shoes in UP Sonbhadra. Now, coming back to Madhya Pradesh, in another instance, a youth was beaten up brutally and was forced to lick the sole of the shoes of the goons in MP's Gwalior. And today, news coming in of 2 minors being forced to drink urine in UP Siddharth Nagar. In fact, green chilies were rubbed on their private parts just on the suspicion of theft. Also, news coming in today from Rajasthan, where a woman was branded a witch and she was beaten to death with an umbrella. In fact, what the police are saying is that the man involved in this particular case was going through hallucinations. But the fact of the matter is that there has been an unprecedented rise in such crimes of cruelty and absolutely inhuman crimes. Joining us now, very special guests, AK Jain, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, is with us, and in studio, Sonika Chhabra, director of Roo Foundation and a prominent child rights activist. Going across to you first, Sonika Chhabra, what do you make of these absolutely horrific crimes? Have we become inhuman?
I'm shocked, I'm speechless, and I have no words in my dictionary to explain what has happened. So they were, what I've gathered, that they were children, I think that they did a theft of, they stole chicken. So at the end, they are children, they don't know what is right and what is wrong. And what these adults have done is absolutely not acceptable. The law, the judiciary is so strong in our country. They should pass a very, very strict and a serious laws to condemn them, to punish them. And I would request, the way the kids were tortured, these culprits should be tortured the same way. This is what I think about. AK Jain, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, is also with us. Do you think, in a sense, this reflects poorly on the state of our police as far as states like Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh are concerned?
there's been this repeated concern over a lack of immediate PCR response, lack of CCTVs, because many of these crimes happened in broad daylight and happened in public spaces. That is something that's most concerning.
One thing you will have to realize that this has happened in the rural area of Siddharth Nagar, Pathra Bazaar police station. It's a rural area police station where generally a few shops and establishments, they have CCTVs, otherwise generally the area is not covered by them. Number two, I can assure you that there is a policy of zero tolerance against such crimes, and very drastic action is taken. CM himself monitors it, and DGP, Special DG Law and Order, all the 6 people who are involved in it, they have been arrested, they have been put behind bars, and they will be produced. And I think a case shall be taken to fast-track court, and drastic punishment shall be given to these people. 147, 148, 49, 307, and I think they will be detained under Gangsters Act also. It should be done. It should be done to teach such people a lesson, so that others realize that if they commit this sort of ghastly act, they shall be behind bars for a very long time.
But Sonika, come in also on the point of how, the most vulnerable are really the powerless in the society. In 2 of these cases that I just went through, there were tribals. One of them was an SC youth, a youth from the scheduled caste community. Then there are minors. Talk to us about how we, in a sense, protect the most vulnerable as far as these crimes are concerned. There are many of them children, tribals, and people from the scheduled caste communities.
I always feel that answer to this is education. We all have to get together and go to these rural areas and educate their parents and these kids, so that nobody can take advantage of their innocence, their age. And because what has happened, it's not a joke. This impact will be with them throughout their life. It's a trauma for these kids. It should not be happening, but I think government should speed up, make some agencies and go towards these small areas and educate these kids and the parents, so this should not happen. And the kids would know what is right and wrong. They would be aware what's right and wrong.
Absolutely. And AK Jain, we spoke of police reforms, but the other important thing is that many of these POCSO cases are pending for the longest time. And other than that, what about the immediate response? Who do these people actually go to? Because many a time we see that there are these helpline numbers which are often not very responsive. So talk to us about how we strengthen our response system, and then how do we actually also, in a sense, speed up all these cases that are pending in courts, even in fast-track courts for that matter?
Dial 112 is doing a very fine job in UP, and it is being further strengthened. Within minutes, vehicle is there. I work for a tower company after retirement as advisor. So I know whenever our men ring up dial 112, vehicle is there within 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and they immediately take stock of the situation. And UP police has also been geared up. Actually, you can't blame UP police for this. There is unemployment, there is lack of education in rural areas. They read somewhere about it and then they try to copy it. The only way to control such crimes, in my opinion, is that immediate arrest should be made, and very, very drastic action should be taken, and cases should be taken to fast-track court.
Right.
Let me tell you one thing, police always files charge sheet very quickly in such cases, but there is huge pendency in courts, and that takes time. So the solution is that you should create more courts, and dates should not be given to the accused because lawyers appear before the judge. That should not be done, and there should be quick disposal of cases.
Absolutely, and the point you made about having more courts, having more fast-track courts, I think that's very important, and immediate arrest as far as the accused are concerned. Thanks very much, Sonika and Mr. AK Jain, for joining us on the broadcast. Absolutely shocking and an unprecedented rise, really, in such hate crimes, really in such brutal crimes and crimes of cruelty, something that makes us think as to where we are headed as a society. Short break now, news and updates continue on the other side.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
In cash.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know.
Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV because the only side we're on is yours.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
Welcome back. Some tragic news coming in from Pakistan. At least 30 people were killed when a train derailed in the southern part of the country today. The country's railway minister has confirmed this news. This is quite a big accident, is what he said, adding that rescue teams have reached on site and at least 15 passengers were killed. And now news coming in that toll has risen to 30. 45 people and more expected are injured in this incident. More rescue teams have also been dispatched to the site as per officials. The derailment happened near the Sahara railway station, the city of Nawab Shah in the southern Sindh province. This is what the local media has said. The exact cause of the incident as to why the 8 to 10 bogies actually derailed is yet to be determined. We'll take a short break now. News continues on the other side.
The NDTV News Network
That informs,
inspires,
and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV.
because the only side we're on is yours.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From 2nd or 3rd week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business, and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets. Perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know.
Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं.
The NDTV News Network
that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. and that's how I like to roll. टेक्नोलॉजी तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते, अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
आज की फिल्म करती होंगी 100 करोड़ 200 करोड़, लेकिन आज से 22 साल पहले एक फिल्म ने कई करोड़ कमाए और दिलों पर राज भी किया. उस फिल्म का नाम गदर. एक बार फिर से वो फिल्म आ रही है लेकिन नए अवतार में, और हमारे साथ हैं मिस्टर सनी देओल. बहुत बहुत स्वागत भाजी NDTV पे. आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत. ये कॉन्वर्सेशन हिंदी अंग्रेजी ते विच में थोड़ी पंजाबी हो सकती है?
सब पर चलूगा.
सब मल्टीलिंगुअल
तादी दा मजा आऊ.
Exactly. So असली जरा अवतार है भाजी दा उदों ही आएगा जब पंजाबी आवेगी. But I have to start with the obvious question. This is 22 years ago.
That's right.
And it was such a massive film. Were you scared while attempting Gadar 2? You know, there's all that pressure.
I've never been scared of things, anything which I do. I'm not scared. Because when I jump into something, I am very sure that, okay, now what I'm jumping into, it's right. I can swim and sail through. Fear factor comes is when it comes to the fag end, especially nowadays, because the whole thing has become a perception game. And that's where I'm very weak. I always feel let the product talk for itself rather than...
By perception, do you mean the PR game?
Yeah.
There's a lot of PR happening around films.
Yeah.
And you're still old school when it comes to...
Yeah, because we used to do films, film करते थे, shooting खत्म हो जाती थी, picture लगती थी, हम दूसरी film की shooting कर रहे होते थे. हमें पता भी नहीं था, but definitely था कि picture चल रही है, अच्छी होगी, because उस वक्त तोलना वैसे उस तरह से नहीं होती थी जिस तरह से आजकल होती है. So it was a different world then, but anyway, whatever the world is, you have to swim over there and you have to exist over there.
पर वो जो 100 करोड़ क्लब वाला आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा चलन है, वैसा कुछ ज़हन में है कि that's the aim?
नहीं, देखिए aim, वो aim की वजह से लोग बहुत कुछ कर देते हैं. मेरा तो यही है कि बस पिक्चर बनी है, अच्छी है. हाँ, आजकल जैसे चारों तरफ से खबरें आ रही हैं कि इतनी एडवांस लग गई है, ये हो गया, तो फिर एक कॉन्फिडेंस आ गया है कि
of course advance bookings की बहुत
अच्छी कह रहे हैं. So it is giving me a lot of confidence, positive, but again then जब वक्त आएगा तभी पता चलेगा. Till then, fingers crossed.
Yeah, there was one phenomenon which is Barbenheimer. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
So two great films came together, absolutely opposite. And you know, we would discuss this on our channel that why doesn't Bollywood do this often? But I know you did this 22 years ago.
We've done it so many times.
But usually producers avoid. They don't want to pit this film against any other big film.
That is because what happens nowadays, you see, there were cinemas earlier on, and each cinema showed one film, other one showed one film, another one showed one film. Now what's happened is become multiplexes. So now multiplexes mean there is actually one cinema, capacity is that much, but there are so many screens. So what happens, earlier we used to do 11 o'clock show, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock show, 6 o'clock show, 9 o'clock show, and that it used to be. So people had a time set. Picture ka movie. Now it has become such a way that because they have so many screens, so then they've divided the show timing in so much that after every hour the same show of the same film can happen.
Right.
And that's where the game happens. So the person who's got a good muscle power will get all the maximum best shows and the other film suffers. And then again the cinemas don't give them the breathing time for a film, even if it's good, to be extended ahead. And then again वहाँ पर डाल देंगे इसकी तो इतनी बुकिंग हुई, इसकी नहीं हुई, पर जो आदमी उसको देखना चाहता आज नहीं कल या परसों जब देखता है ही नहीं तो मैं कहाँ देखूँ. So these are the things.
कैपेसिटी बढ़ गई है तो आपको लगता है ऐसे कॉन्सेप्ट्स?
कैपेसिटी नहीं बढ़ी थिएटर्स की, स्क्रीन्स बढ़ गई. The capacity of the audience to come is not that much, but the screens have gone up.
Right. अब देखिए 22 साल हो गए हैं. अगर वैसे मुझे लगता नहीं है कि कोई ऐसा शख्स होगा जिसने फिल्म नहीं देखी होगी, लेकिन कोई अगर यंगस्टर है जिसने पुरानी फिल्म नहीं देखी, what would be your message to that person? Someone, let's say, who's 20 years old today.
जे वो फैमिली मैन है तो कहीं ना कहीं देखी होगी. जे अकेला ही रहा है 20 साल से तो शायद ना देखी हो.
मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ, ये चांसेस बहुत कम है कि ना देखी हो. बट आई थिंक या गदर वो नाम ही जो है वो अपने आप में
बिकॉज फैमिलीज की फेवरेट थी, बच्चे भी उनके साथ, जब हम छोटे होते थे माँ बाप जो देखते थे हम सब वही देखा करते थे, तो वो आज भी देख लो जितने भी गाने हम सुनते हैं, हम हमेशा पुराना गाना आ जाता है वी स्टार्ट हमिंग, क्योंकि हम तब से सुनते आ रहे हैं. एंड अगेन ऑब्वियसली दे हैड मेलोडी, दे हैड सिंप्लिसिटी, दे हैड it was creation of music. Now it is pick, mix, make it, and then sound effects guys will make your voice also nice. Everything is nice.
But we have remix in your film also, which is Urja Kale Kama as a remake.
It is a remix, not. It is a recreated it again.
Recreated, yeah.
Right? Recreated it again. Just because, so I feel. Why recreate? Let it be the same one. I'm the believer of that because हम पिक्चर में पुराने गाने लगा देते हैं, लोगों उन्हें पसंद आते हैं, पर उनको सिर्फ थोड़ा सा वेरिएशन देने के लिए. Then again, Mithun is there. He's again a very great music composer. He's given such great numbers, and like how Uttam Singh did the earlier Gadar, and here he is there. He's nothing less than that. So obviously, this is the way he brought the energy to it. From him side, but he has kept the parameter there.
हमने बात कर ली इंडस्ट्री में बहुत कुछ बदला. आपने कहा कि you know there's more of PR and of course numbers अलग तरीके से कैलकुलेट होते हैं. सेट पर क्या बदला है?
सेट पर आजकल बहुत सारे डायरेक्टर्स हो गए हैं. क्योंकि मॉनिटर होता है, नहीं मॉनिटर होता है तो हर आदमी जाके मॉनिटर पे देखता है और अपनी अपनी सलाह देता रहता है.
ट्रू टीम बड़ी होगी.
हाँ, एक्टर के लोग आएंगे बोलेंगे सर एक और ले लो, वो उसमें देखिए ये आपका ये बाल खराब थे, दूसरा आगे बोलेगा आपके वो कपड़े खराब थे. अरे भाई, when we did I mean now also I never see a monitor. I look at my director to find out was the take right or wrong. Did I perform right or wrong? He says okay, for me that's more than enough. For the cameraman is a person who basically now he's relying, so let him see over there. But initially cameraman used to just watch through that. Right? Director was not watching it. And he would give the decision, okay for me. If he would say one more, we never argued because there is something which he missed out and he wants to capture it.
Right.
So it was and it was faster and it was more lovely. We felt we did something and we're moving ahead.
Gadar has become a part of culture as well. Recently there was, a cross-border love story. They started calling it a Gadar. What do you feel about that? Like the way it has weaved into the culture of
Because Gadar has been a love story. It is one of the most iconic love stories to me. And I'm sure the people who have seen it, if they recreate and run it in their mind, they will see that it is a love story which has held them on. And so cross borders everywhere, it is love because love is the strength. No matter, love has no borders. That's what love is all about. If there are borders, then there was never a love.
So, सोशल मीडिया का ज़माना है और आई एम श्योर जैसे आपने कहा कि बहुत सारी चीज़ें बदली हैं, आपको वो अनॉय करता है थोड़ा सा? फॉर एग्जांपल इफ योर को एक्टर अमीशा, उनकी काफ़ी ज़्यादा क्रिटिसिज्म हो रहा है फॉर हर स्टेटमेंट्स और हाउ शी इज.
क्या हो गया? सोशल मीडिया has been picked up by वेले लोग a lot.
But have you been able to talk to Amisha? How is she reacting?
No, I'm not because we're so used to it now. No, so जो भी है सो है. And like I said, social media वेले बंदे होंगे ना, जिन्हों को कुछ काम नहीं होना, कुछ खिलौना आ गया, उन्होंने की पई है मैं की लिख रहे हैं, मैं थोड़ी ना किन्हों फेस करना है, पाई जाओ मजा आ रहा है. And then obviously then the companies pick up, they want to troll somebody, वहाँ से फिर उनके groups आ गए हैं, कोई क्या कर रहा है. So it is a fake thing which is happening over there. So one should never get disturbed with all that. You know who you are and you know what you have done. And don't read the comments, just throw them away.
But do you think cancel culture has increased? Cancel culture?
Cancel?
Culture. So basically, that culture of, I mean, Rocky और रानी में भी उन्होंने बात की, एक पूरा मोनोलॉग है रणवीर सिंह का जिसमें he says कि अगर कोई मतलब कोई मोटे को मोटा नहीं बोल सकते, that's his dialogue. And cancel culture.
I think क्या हो रहा है कि हम लोग बाहर के देशों से इन्फ्लुएंस होकर फिर उसको यहाँ पर डाल देते हैं, डालना चाहते हैं विदाउट समझे कि हम वैसे लोग नहीं हैं.
हम कल्चरली
हम अलग है. हमारा कल्चर इतना डीप रूटेड है, चाहे जो मर्जी कर लो ये कभी हिलेगा नहीं. वो हिलेगा नहीं, वो हिलना भी नहीं चाहिए बिकॉज वेदों से कहाँ से चलता आ रहा है, कब से चलता आ रहा है. जो चीज़ चलती आ रही है इतनी से उसके अंदर वाइब्स हैं, उसके अंदर कुछ चीज़ें हैं. Why is it that our country is so disorganized till it's organized? Why is that there are so many temples and we find God nowhere else but in India? Because it's what it is, हमारी जो हिस्ट्री है.
तो आपने कहा काफी समय से चलता रहा. आपके परिवार में भी कुछ तो मैजिक है. वी जस्ट सॉ धर्मेंद्र जी in that movie, and there's an iconic kissing scene. How did you react to that?
Well, my dad can do anything, and he's the only actor, I would say, who can carry it off.
He's killed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I must say. And but what was your reaction? And was he...
I didn't see it. I heard about it. And,
You've not watched the film?
I've not watched the film.
Oh, no,
Unfortunately, I'm not very watch. film इतनी देखता नहीं हूँ मैं.
अच्छा.
मैं खुद की पिक्चर भी नहीं कितनी बार देखता.
But did you talk to him about this?
No, I mean, how can I talk to my dad about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's Dharamji, after all, how can you?
And anyway, I mean, he's a personality who can कुछ भी चीज़ carry कर सकते हैं because it is humbleness, is honesty, and there's no other thing in that character, whatever he does.
Lastly, my last question, I've of course taken the liberty to call him Paji, but because you give that vibe, how are you aging backwards?
How am I aging backwards? I never knew I was aging ahead. It's when we all talk about it, then I realize, Achha, is that the number? But I don't feel that number because I'm still doing what the youngsters are doing.
I just Googled Sunny Deol age and I was like, what, wait? Or what just happened? What did I just read? Because I can see
It's 65.
Wow, that number, I mean, so what's the secret?
As a matter of fact, my Betab released on 5th of August, which is 40 years now.
Wow. So बताएंगे आप secret हमें ताकि हमें भी आगे
कोई
जाके
secret
मदद
नहीं
मिल
है,
जाए?
कुछ नहीं है, numbers को भूल जाओ, birthday के numbers लेकर ही आप लोग घूमते रहते हो, बस आदमी को फिर उस हिसाब से देखने लग जाते हो. हमारा दिमाग है वो कभी old नहीं होता, that's always young, and that's what keeps your body going.
Wow, and Gadar too also looks absolutely young. Thank you so very much for this conversation. Thank you so much. This is Arun Singh signing off for NDTV.
Critical.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From 2nd or 3rd week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know. Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos.
Bill Gates, probably.
Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network
that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
For the first time in cricket's broadcast history in India, the Board of Control for Cricket in India will charge more from digital platforms than TV to telecast matches. The BCCI released an e-auction tender last week in which they reduced the collective base price, that is TV plus digital, to as low as 45 crore rupees per match. For all formats of international cricket, India will play at home in the coming 5 years. The base price for digital rights is at rupees 50 crore per match, which is now to be more than TV rights, which stands at rupees 40 crore per match. But the big talking point is the fact that the basket rate of TV plus digital is lower than digital rights. What was the price that Disney Star paid in the last cycle? Yes, 61 crore per match, which has now been reduced. To discuss this and more, joining me right now is Karan Taurani, Senior Vice President, Research Analyst at Elara Capital. He's also an expert on OTT platform. Karan Taurani, let me start by asking you this very basic question. Are we seeing a shift in how India consumes its cricket today?
Hi, good afternoon. I think definitely, there is a shift in terms of consumption. What happened with JioCinema was quite disruptive in nature. They offered the most premium content, IPL free of cost. And, you have seen some sort of a shift in terms of, TV to digital. But nonetheless, I think both these platforms will coexist. We don't see that, digital will take the entire share of TV because there are also concerns in terms of digital consumption. Because if you look at digital as a medium, I think the consumption patterns is more limited to convenience watching on the go kind of things. If you really want to watch seamless cricket content, TV is still, kind of having a significant share in terms of consumption.
But I also want to bring up the point that the number of viewers on JioCinema was 44.9 crore as compared to TV, which was over 50 crore, which you rightly pointed out. But now BCCI has gone ahead with the higher rights for digital, despite that fact that 2023 IPL season saw more TV viewers than digital. Why do you think have they done this?
See, I think, predominantly 5 years back, you did not see cricket rights being unbundled. They were just sold in a package kind of a thing. But what is happening right now is that, in terms of the pricing, digital rights are kind of, more expensive as compared to TV rights, potentially because of the growth of the medium. So let's take the case of IPL. Versus earlier cycle, if you take IPL, digital rights were sold at a premium of 6 times as compared to the earlier cycle. Whereas in the case of TV, the premium was only 2 times compared to the earlier cycle. So you have seen, sharper premiums in the digital rights, clearly because of 2 reasons. One is it's a high growth medium. The medium is growing by anywhere close to 25-30% in a country like India, which is underpenetrated for digital consumption. And secondly, there are multiple players here. So you've got more players bidding for digital rights as compared to TV, which now stands to be consolidated, and you don't have too many bidders as well. So because you've got more bidders, eventually you'll attract heftier premiums, and even the right will be sold at a very high price.
The last time the bidding happened, there were 3 different platforms that competed for it, and it ultimately went to JioCinema, who managed to screen the entire thing free of cost. Do you feel there is going to be a shift in that sense as well, wherein the other platforms would come in and say that look, we'll pay you extra bucks, but we'll do that free of cost as well?
See, that really depends in terms of internal strategy of a particular company. So if you look at the case of JioCinema, they really wanted to make very strong inroads in the OTT market. The OTT market is very fragmented. There are multiple players. The only way is, to offer content free of cost and really scale up a subscriber base. So that is something internal which they had done. I don't foresee that other players will follow this. So I think if you look at Disney Plus, I think they've announced recently that World Cup will be available free after JioCinema, offering IPL free.
Yeah.
But if you look at Sony Live, they still got a pay-based, on cricket content. They haven't, given free cricket content as such. So it depends in terms of what the company actually wants. But broadly, I think, even this time around, I think the price is more reasonable in nature. In fact, if you look at the base price, rather it is 20% lower as compared to what the earlier cycle was. Whereas in the case of IPL, the base price itself was double of the earlier cycle.
Yeah.
And then there was a 50% premium further, beyond that. So my only point is that whatever price BCCI is offering in terms of the rights today, it seems to be reasonable. And also it's also factoring the negative impact that we've seen in the last 1.5 years. I mean, when the rights went for, auction for IPL, the market dynamics are very different as compared to right now. So it's factoring in the negative impact of the market as well.
I also want to talk about the ad revenues. When it comes to ad revenues, we see a massive difference here as well. JioCinema, they earn between 2,300 to 2,500 crore in advertising revenue, whereas Disney Star's ad revenue, it hovered around 1,800 to 2,000 crore rupees. Do you feel this is also a major reason why BCCI would tilt towards OTT platforms?
They've clearly, kind of kept that difference between TV and digital media rights, because they also foresee that somewhere the demand for digital will be much more because of more platforms bidding for it, and because it's being a high growth medium as such. As far as ad revenues is concerned, I would not want to comment individually on JioCinema, or on Star, but broadly, if you look at this year, because the market environment not being so conducive because of new age companies cutting ad spends on a sharp basis, IPL revenues were down close to 25% as compared to last year. And if you look at digital herein, which was growing at, 25-30% kind of number, if you look at, and because you cannot compare, digital on IPL, because last year IPL was behind the paywall. You had a subscription revenue and you had an ad revenue. This year you had only ad revenue. So you cannot actually do a like-to-like comparison. But broadly, TV digital put together, what IPL earned in terms of revenues, it was down close to 25% as compared to last year.
Yeah. Karan Taurani, thank you very much for speaking to NDTV, giving a valuable inputs on what is unfolding right now, and we'll keep an eye on how it unfolds in the coming future. Thank you very much. Shreyas Harish, a 13-year-old promising rider from Bengaluru, succumbed to injuries he suffered following a crash in the third round of the MRF Indian National Motorcycle Racing Championship at the Madras International Circuit on Saturday. This incident occurred soon after the start of the rookie race, for which he had qualified in pole position. Exiting turn 1, Shreyas fell following a crash and suffered a grievous head injury. He was rushed to a nearby hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. This is the second fatality at the Madras International Circuit this year, after 59-year-old K.E. Kumar died in a saloon car racing accident in January. An Indian badminton star, H.S. Pranoy, ended up as runner-up at the Australian Open 2023 in what was a heartbreaking loss to China's Weng Hongyang in a thrilling men's single final on Sunday. Pranoy came agonizingly close after a marathon 90 minutes of play when he lost a last point in the third game. He was left to bear the heartache as the 9-21, 23-21, 2022 loss against wall number 24 when robbed him of a chance to win his second BWF title of this season. And four-time Olympic champion Simone Biles made a triumphant return to gymnastics after a 2-year break. The 26-year-old American came up with a stunning display to win the US Classic in her first event since the Tokyo Olympics. Simone, in 2021, she was taking a break to work on her mental health. This was Biles' first competition since pulling out of 5 of her 6 finals at the delayed Tokyo Games in 2021. She had later said that she had been suffering from twisties, a mental block where gymnasts can lose their sense of space in the air. Biles is yet to confirm her participation in the next year's Olympics in Paris. We'll slip into a short break. News continues on the other side.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
Years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on, with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, Building a Blueprint for Climate Action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know. Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network
that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said.
Demolition drive continues in riot-hit Nuh in Haryana. Deputy Chief Minister of the state hits out at fake cow vigilantes. Meanwhile, more politics as Aam Aadmi Party leader has been named in the violence. The BJP has hit out at the Aam Aadmi Party. Face-off also between the police and the CPI MPs as they were stopped from entering Nuh. Shocker from Uttar Pradesh. 2 minor boys tortured, forced to drink urine, tortured with green chilies. 3 minor boys have been tortured on suspicion of theft. This shocker coming in from Uttar Pradesh. In exclusive information to NDTV, in fact, Sharad Pawar tells ESI that there is not any divide in the NCP. Speculation rife for the future of both Pawar Senior and the way he wants to take his faction forward. No evidence of 2 factions of the NCP is what Pawar camp has told the poll panel. Meanwhile, getting ready ahead of the Rajya Sabha tabling the Delhi Services Bill, the Aam Aadmi Party has issued whip to all its 10 MPs in the Rajya Sabha. Remember, Sanjay Singh, one of the MPs, has been suspended for the entire session. Three months on, tensions and troubles continue in Manipur. The death toll from the violence on Saturday goes up to 6 amid increasing tension. Centre has rushed in more troops to control the situation. All right, starting with our big story that is going to, in fact, play out in the Parliament tomorrow. Before the Parliament resumes on Monday, most of the paperwork needed to restore Rahul Gandhi's membership has been completed. The Supreme Court, remember, on Friday had stayed his conviction. The Speaker has told the leader of the Congress party in Lok Sabha, Dheeran Chaudhary, all paperwork has been received and they will be acting on it soon. The Congress party, meanwhile, has been saying that his disqualification took only 26 hours. They are hoping that Rahul Gandhi will be back in action on Monday ahead of the no confidence motion on 8th, which has to be discussed in the parliament. Let me go across to my colleague Sunil Prabhu, who is joining us with more details on this. Sunil, the Congress party, in fact, stressing for Rahul Gandhi's membership to be resumed as soon as possible. Mallikarjun Kharge himself saying it took 26 hours. Now the countdown, the clock has begun in how soon, in fact, Rahul Gandhi's membership is restored. What is the Congress party hoping, and how effective is Rahul Gandhi coming back to the parliament? How is it going to be a shot in the arm for the Congress party, Sunil?
Well, it's going to be a huge, boost, political boost, because in that no confidence motion, even though that the opposition and the India Alliance does not have the numbers, they wanted the Prime Minister to speak, and Rahul Gandhi, who 6 months ago had been, stopped from speaking, and there was a defamation case where he was convicted, his membership was disqualified, as you said. So the Speaker conveying officially to the leader of the Congress party that his membership, all the papers that are required are there with the Lok Sabha Secretariat. We are expecting a decision early tomorrow so that he can participate and become a member and take part in the proceedings that will happen in the Lok Sabha. And it's in that context that the Congress party, as well as the India Alliance members, if his membership is not restored, will raise it on the floor of the House. And if there is a delay, as you have always known in the case of the Lakshadweep MP, Mohammad Faisal, who had to really move pillar and post to get the Speaker to finally restore his membership, and it took nearly a month. This time round, they are not ready to wait that long for this restoration, and they're even threatening to go to the Supreme Court if the Lok Sabha Speaker does not take an early decision. And they hope that Rahul Gandhi, and it's in most likelihood, because what we have been told by our Lok Sabha Secretariat people is that everything has been done.
Right.
There should not be any stopping him from going ahead and becoming a member once again.
Sunil, does it also mean, like you said, you gave an example of the Lakshadweep MP who literally had to go to the court and he had to fight a long battle before his membership could be restored. Does this also mean that Rahul Gandhi's, the house that he had vacated because of this decision, he will get that back? Is there a separate process for that as well?
So that's a separate process. As soon as his membership is restored, the House Committee will then decide and give him his house entitlement. In case the previous house, that is the 12 Tughlaq Lane, in this case which we are talking about, has not been allotted to somebody else, then definitely he could be given back and restored the same very house. So it's in that backdrop we'll have to wait and see how things play out. But definitely, if that house hasn't been allotted to anybody else, then the House Committee should ideally give him back that house at the earliest.
Thank you so much, Sunil, for joining us with all those details. Continuing with the political, in fact, and the politics which has been taking place as far as the parliament is concerned. Now, the Aam Aadmi Party has issued a whip to all its Rajya Sabha MPs, anticipating that the Delhi Services Bill is going to be tabled in the Rajya Sabha for discussion tomorrow. Remember, the bill has already passed the scrutiny of the Lok Sabha. All Rajya Sabha MPs of the parties were asked to remain in the parliament on 7th and 8th of August. That is when the bill is expected to come to Rajya Sabha. The Delhi Services Bill will come up for discussion. Rajya Sabha is where the Aam Aadmi Party has 10 MPs, and they would be hoping that they are able to put forward their point of view, at least here, because remember, the Lok Sabha MP, the lone Lok Sabha MP for the Aam Aadmi Party was suspended by the Speaker for his alleged unruly behavior. Meanwhile, Sanjay Singh, one of the 10 MPs of Rajya Sabha for the Aam Aadmi Party, remains suspended. All right, breaking news coming in. Pakistan has announced that, in fact, it has confirmed that its cricket team to India will participate in the upcoming ICC Cricket World Cup. The Foreign Office of Pakistan has said Pakistan believes the state of bilateral relations with India should not stand in the way of fulfilling its international sports-related obligations. The statement also reads, Pakistan's decision shows its constructive and responsible approach vis-a-vis India. In fact, India's intransigent attitude. In fact, the latter has refused to send cricket team to Pakistan for the Asia Cup, but Pakistan will be sending its team on Indian soil. My colleague Osama now joins us with more details on this. Osama, big development. Most of the cricket fans were hoping that they will be able to see India versus Pakistan clash on Indian soil. Now it has been confirmed by the Pakistani Foreign Ministry.
It is indeed big news for all the cricket fans, not just for Indian cricket fans, because participation of Pakistan in the World Cup is a big match ticket, because India versus Pakistan is considered to be one of the biggest cricket matches in terms of revenue, in terms of fan interaction, in terms of players. So their team coming to India to play the ODI World Cup is a big news, not just for Indian fans and Pakistan fans, but also cricket fans from around the world. And like you mentioned, the relationship between India and Pakistan has been on a nice edge for a long time. In fact, both the countries have only played each other in ICC tournaments over the past decade, and there have been no bilateral series. There have been no tri-nation series where these teams have encountered each other. It is only the ICC tournaments like the T20 World Cup or the ODI World Cup where they have encountered each other. So it is big news for all the fans, because they get to watch this big ticket match. That match, the World Cup match, is going to happen on the 14th of October. Earlier it was supposed to happen on 15th, but three cricket boards, they basically requested BCCI to change dates because of anomaly in the dates of these matches. So some of these matches were happening at the gap of 5 days, 6 days, and some of these were happening in the gap of 3 days. So yes, it is a huge development. Pakistan cricket team earlier had said that they would require government permission to travel to India for the World Cup, and this has happened, and it is absolutely great news for all the cricket fans.
That's right. This will be a much, a fixture which a lot of fans would be hoping to catch. One of the key highlights of the World Cup 2023. Thank you, Osama, for joining us with all those details. All right, we are getting some other breaking news at this moment from India. In fact, NDA partner and the partner in the government of Manipur, Biren Singh government, Kuki People's Alliance, has withdrawn its support from the Biren Singh government in Manipur. Remember, it's been 3 years of unabated violence and tensions which continue. 3 months, I beg your pardon, the tension which continues in the state of Manipur. And now Kuki People's Alliance, which has 2 MLAs, as far as the website of the Manipur Assembly, has withdrawn its support from the Biren Singh government. My colleague Ratnadeep is now joining us with more details on this story, on the current situation in Manipur. Ratnadeep, it doesn't hamper the majority as far as the government is concerned. The government is still safe, but this does sends across a very strong message, isn't it?
That's right. In fact, the government is safe because their numbers of MLAs are only 2 as per the official, list which is there in the government website. But what is important here, this is important messaging. The Kuki politicians, the Kuki civil society leadership are actually hardening their stand, and this hardening of the stand has started ever since they demanded that they will organize a mass burial of 35 of the tribal victims of the violence whose mortal remains were there in the morgue of Chirachandpur Medical College for about 3 months. And from there on, they basically are trying to play hardball. This is also because tomorrow a delegation of Kuki civil society leaders are traveling to Delhi. They are trying to meet Union Home Minister Amit Shah and MHA officials to put forward their demands. Remember, the Ministry of Home Affairs had requested the Kuki-Zo-Chin leadership to postpone their dates of mass burial and give them 7 days time to sort out the issues with the site of burial. So therefore, now the Kuki politicians are hardening their stand.
Right, so no trouble though at this moment for the N. Biren Singh government, but this does send across a very strong message and also tells you the deepening divide as far as the Kukis and the Meiteis are concerned in the state of Manipur. With that, we are slipping into a very short break. Rakandeep, thank you for joining us. Coming back, there is much more news on the other side. Stay tuned.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
Health.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets. Perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know. Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network
that informs,
inspires,
and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
"23 years of the big fight." This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Three months on and days after the Supreme Court said that the law and order situation in Manipur has completely broken down, the violence in the state continues. Saturday saw the deadliest attack in a fortnight. At least 6 people have been killed in the violence and over a dozen injured. Massive combing operation has been launched by the army and security forces. New troops have also been rushed in to the violence-hit state.
Deserted streets in Manipur's capital Imphal on Sunday morning, as day curfew was not relaxed for the first time this month. At least 6 people were killed and at least 16 others were injured in Bishnupur-Churachandpur violence on Saturday. Those injured are being treated at Churachandpur Hospital.
Pumpi ki kam masanga bom kap na te nang kha loi pa khan wa phelina phelna kha ng sopo kha mo de kha ki sokha ka hiu mi pathum khat so mo na be den mo e bangma chu khoti serious lo operation chu chai tu hi ki ngang mai discharge de.
Saturday also saw women vigilante groups protesting in Imphal over the gruesome killing of 3 men, including a father-son duo and their neighbor at Kwakta in Bishnupur district, only few miles from the volatile borders with Churachandpur district.
अपने पत्नी से बातचीत कर रहा था, वो कह रहा था कि आज तो बहुत सन्नाटा है, हमें डर लग रहा है, तो मैंने कहा रिलीफ कैंप पे चलो, लेकिन पिताजी ने नहीं माना, इसलिए वो रिलीफ कैंप पे नहीं गया। लेकिन मैं अपने मायके में रह रही थी, तब फोन आया था किसी ने गोली मार दिया है। नरेंद्र मोदी जी भी मैं कहना चाहती हूँ, वो अभी तक क्या कर रहा है, हमारे सरकार बीरेन भी क्या कर रहा है, दोनों हमारे लोग मरने के लिए वो देख रहा है क्या हुआ, कितना मरे है।
Retaliatory attacks soon started. Armed miscreants reportedly opened fire. mortar shells and grenades in Kwaktas, two neighboring villages, Faujang and Songdu, which falls in Churachandpur district, killing 2 people and injuring few others. Saturday was among the deadliest days of Manipur violence, which is inching closer to 100 days now. Centre has sent 10 more companies of central forces to Imphal to add to the existing massive deployment of about 120 companies. The army has also launched a massive operation along the border areas between the hills and the valley region. With BM Sanju in Imphal, in Guwahati, Ratndeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Rashi ki school fee.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity. Because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From 2nd or 3rd week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know.
Satya Nadella.
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates probably.
Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network
That informs
inspires
and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV.
because the only side we're on is yours.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable.
Welcome to Serious Business on NDTV. 30 minutes of hard business news. One topic, one speaker, and a conversation that's relevant to you. I'm Manvi Sinha Dhillon. I don't need to tell you this, we all know it, but let's just revisit it for some context. On May 12th, I paid 50 rupees a kilo for tomatoes. On June 28th, I paid 99 rupees a kilo for tomatoes. So prices doubled in 45 days. And on July 15th, I paid 220 rupees a kilo for tomatoes. So prices went up 2.2 times in just 15 days. I have all the bills from the local sabzi shop to prove it. Now, what you and I have experienced at the sabzi shop is what has got captured in the Consumer Price Index or inflation for June 2023. Food inflation is clearly visible. Now, unseasonal, extreme, uneven rainfall is the root cause for the food inflation. The experts say so. We can all see the logic in that, so there's no debate. But unseasonal, extreme weather conditions are due to climate change. And let's just take that as a given for now. Each extreme weather event causes price shocks, and the economic consequences are becoming more personal, and they're hitting us fairly regularly. Renowned agricultural economist Dr. Ashok Gulati says that while tomato prices may cool in August, September, onion prices are likely to rise. So brace yourself. What does all of this mean then? Well, actually it generates a whole bunch of questions. Are policymakers and the central bank, Reserve Bank of India, thinking about how climate change impacts food prices and food security? Are short-term measures like export bans and stocking limits working? Actually, they're more relevant for wheat, rice and sugar anyway. Is there a medium-term plan in place? Well, theoretically there is. Operation Greens, which was announced in the Union Budget speech of 2018-19, initially covering tomatoes, onions, potatoes. 2020 it was extended to cover all vegetables and fruits. Among other things, the focus under Operation Greens is to develop a value chain for fruits and vegetables, and the reason that's important is because it helps India build up stocks of perishable items like vegetables and fruit. So how is Operation Greens progressing? Now, these are some of the questions that I've come up with, and I hope that you find them relevant as well. But between us, we're not experts, which is why it gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Ashok Gulati, a renowned agricultural economist, very well regarded with decades of experience, currently serving as Distinguished Professor at ICRIER, which is the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. Dr. Gulati, thank you so much for your time on NDTV.
Thank you for having me.
I want to cover so much, and perhaps the time's always going to be short. Fundamental question first, what's happening to production and supply in order of priority? Cereals first, milk as well, and vegetables. How is that impacting prices?
Well, prices, food inflation, there is an upside risk. It has gone up. The trend of CPI that was coming down has reversed and is likely to go up if preemptive action is not taken. The largest contribution in CPI inflation, consumer price index inflation, in June is from cereals. It's about 12% inflation rate, but given the weight in the consumption basket of the consumer, which is high, the contribution to inflation is 22%. That's the highest. Now, why that is happening? There is a reason on the wheat side. Our stocks had gone down. Last year, production estimates were, the trade believes, much lower than what the government had said. There was a big gap. Even this year, when the government is saying we are going to have 112 and 13 million tons, the trade feels it's 105, 106 million tons. So there is a gap in wheat. So what did we do? Last year we put first an export ban on wheat, then this time in June we started putting stocking limits on wheat. My feeling is we are using the policy instruments of 1960s when we didn't have the foreign exchange to buy anything. The fact is, if your production has gone down, or at least the trade believes that it has gone down, how do you kill those expectations, inflationary expectations, by importing? And you have so much, $600 billion in your reserves. What if you import 5 million tons of wheat and kill those inflationary expectations? You have an import duty on wheat of 40%. There is no need. So you bring it down to 5%, 10%, and the inflationary pressures will cool. Rice, right now we have put export ban on white rice. Our stocks with FCI are 3 times the buffer stock norms, 3 times, and still we have put export controls. Maybe that erratic rainfall is there and therefore the coming crop may not be as good. But I started getting calls and emails from Africa that there is an emergency. Today I got an email from Liberia that there is an emergency, that what is going to happen to prices and how we are going to afford. So in a year, especially when India is playing G20 presidency, and I think they have done a great thing that include African Union as a member of the G20 on a regular basis, then they have to walk the talk in terms of the interest of the global south. And India is the biggest rice exporter in the world. 40% of global exports are by India. So if you suddenly ban white rice exports, it flares up the prices of those. I don't think there was any need for that. You could have played much better. But in the inflation of this, we must remember that we are giving free wheat and free rice, 5 kilograms per person per month, to more than 800 million people. So for whom are you trying to suppress the prices of wheat and rice? For you and me? At the cost of whom ultimately it is the farmers' prices will go down. And farmers equally need better incentives for their production. So that will be missing. So
I'm trying not to go off in many different directions because you've certainly set me off in many directions. I want to continue this stock take. Milk, sort of flying below the radar, but worrying signals. Elaborate.
Milk, in CPI basket there are 299 commodities, out of which milk actually is bigger than any commodity, the weight of milk. We are the largest producer of milk in the world. But last year what had happened, our production was more or less stagnant. It was 222 million tons. A previous year was only 221 million tons. And that was because of lumpy skin disease and primarily that hit the livestock sector and the production stagnated. The demand is continuously going up. Again, the solution you could have controlled, the feed costs went up dramatically. So farmers say our costs have gone up. You see Amul and you see Mother Dairy in a year roughly 4 to 5 times it increased the prices. Amul is the leader, so they increase 3 times the prices. That leads to increased prices and therefore the CPI pressure. Now I would love to see again the skimmed milk powder and the butter. These two things combine and make liquid milk, right? The import duty on skimmed milk powder is 60% and on butter is 40%. If you are short of supplies, bring it down. Your prices are above the world prices. If they are above the world prices and you have such high duties, you are creating an inefficient structure of the industry. I can imagine 5-10% protection you want to give to your producers, but 60% protection and under that you want to develop a sector, it will collapse. That's not the way to go and create a comparative sector. So I would urge the government, if you want to control inflation, and especially food inflation, you need to play the trade policy, the import policy more liberally, because you have enough foreign exchange and there is no harm when you want to export more. We are the largest exporter of rice. Why can't we import 5 million tons of wheat or 2 million tons of skimmed milk powder or butter to reconstitute milk here? So I think our policy matrix is still being dominated by more of self-sufficiency in autarky.
Which is not relevant in the times that we live in.
It can't be. If you want self-sufficiency, please have self-sufficiency in crude oil. The whole economy will come to a standstill if anything goes wrong. 88% is being imported.
Okay, we've talked about cereals, we've talked about milk, and I'm glad we've actually reversed the order that I started our conversation with today, which was all about tomatoes. On the vegetable side as well, cover that and give us a sense of what to expect in the coming months, whether it's cereals, whether it's milk, whether it's vegetables, any particular vegetables, where are prices headed?
Vegetable prices get a shock from unseasonal rains or even heat waves. Okay, so the extreme weather events, you started off with climate change, and the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events is going to increase. That you take it granted. If that is going to increase, then all the crops will have difficulty. If there is a heat wave, wheat will suffer immediately, tomatoes will suffer, but this time tomato production was literally wiped out quite a bit in the Kolar region, which is one of the largest market, the largest market in the country. That region was hit by unseasonal rains and then pest attacks, and the market arrivals in Kolar dropped by 2/3. So only 1/3 was coming than what the regular normally comes, and that gets reflected in the spike in the prices that you pay 220 rupees a kg.
Actually, it went up to 270 as well. But what to watch out for in the months ahead?
Our reading and our research shows in the second half of August, we are expecting the Maharashtra crop to come in. Normally at this time, Himachal crop starts coming in. It comes from different parts of the country, and but Himachal has been hit, by all these landslides and massive floods. So the logistics problem is a big problem right now. So my feeling is from second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down, and in
tomatoes.
September it will stabilize. But unfortunately, our research shows onion is going to give you tears from September, October. And that's where the pressure is going to be, because that crop, all the stocks that were kept of Rabi onion, quite a bit of that has been damaged, some by excessive rains, and earlier there was the heat. So that stock is towards the end, and before the new crop comes, that is the period for 2 months. If you paid 220 rupees for tomatoes, don't be surprised if you will be paying at least 100 rupees for onions. So that's going to be. So that raises an issue. Do we have a policy?
And that's exactly what I want to ask you. And I understand that policies for each bucket are going to be different, because you've got cereals, you've got milk, you've got vegetables. But if it's possible to address all three buckets, do you see a medium-term plan actually taking shape, being implemented, and it's actually truly relevant to the producers and to the consumers?
For non-perishable commodities, the buffer stocking and trade policy, a combination of the two, is the best way to stabilize the prices in the markets. Buffer stocking we do when the harvest comes, you procure and you start releasing when there is a lean season. That's the buffer stocking operation. And wheat and rice, we do a lot of buffer stocking for our public distribution system. So we have protected the most vulnerable, 800 million people. So you have protected them from wheat and rice. It's a free. Nowhere in the world ever perhaps this type of a big program has been launched. Now for you and me, we can easily bear, if it's a little bit of price, but some stabilization is necessary. So that you can do. If your buffer stocks have depleted, trade policy, import policy, because you are keeping foreign exchange reserves, that's your buffer stock.
So, if I can paraphrase you, the buffer stock policy is in play, it's, adequate. It's the trade policy that needs to be much more liberal, sort of dynamic and liberal in a sense. Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge, and to stabilize the prices of perishables, you need good processing. In advanced countries, hardly people use fresh tomatoes like this the way we use every day at home. They will have tomato puree. For all your tadka or anything else, it's tomato puree. So that means when the production comes, they process. They are processing 70 to 80% of the produce. We don't even process 5% of the produce. So I think some processing activity, when there is a glut, and I can bet you will see after 3 months, 4 months, there will be so much of tomato, it will be selling at 5 rupees a kg, 10 rupees a kg for the farmer.
So it actually will protect the farmer as well.
Exactly. So you need to process at least 10 to 15% of the produce of perishables to stabilize the rock bottom prices. At that time you process, and when there is a spike in the prices, you switch to the process. Same thing in onion. You have to either store it or you have to process in dehydrated onions and use that. Unfortunately, these are still very new products in the Indian cuisine, and they need to be promoted to stabilize these. Operation Green that you refer to in 2018-19, and I remember Arun Jaitley ji, who actually initiated this, we were in talk with him at that time. And at one time, even Honorable Prime Minister was saying our top priority is tomatoes, onions and potatoes, because those prices had to be stabilized. And you would remember once onion prices had gone through the roof, and Vajpayee government was literally unseated from onion prices. So he gave 500 crores at that time, and we were in talk, and even he asked, what should we do next? I said, you create a sort of a board like NDTV. We created National Dairy Development Board for development of dairy sector. You create a separate vegetable board and pick up a person who is like Korean, who is passionate to stabilize the value chains of vegetables, because full value chain approach has to be adopted.
That hasn't happened. It's currently still housed in the Ministry of Food Processing.
Food processing,
and
nobody knows who is in charge, who is accountable, nothing.
You needed like a concerted, prioritized sort of action plan, and that hasn't happened.
That hasn't happened, unfortunately, and I would still submit to the government, because this problem will not go away, and at the election time, if onion prices are 150 rupees a kg, it can give you sleepless nights.
A quick break and then we return.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know. Satya Nadella? Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं.
The NDTV News Network
that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt, and that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे, हर रोज, हर हफ्ते, अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
You're watching Serious Business on NDTV. I'm Manvi Sinha Dhillon in conversation today with eminent agricultural economist Dr. Ashok Gulati. We're talking about food supply, we're talking about food prices, and now it's time for a quick round of simple, frequently asked questions drawn from the comments that we see on ndtv.com. Indian farmers, do they benefit when consumers are paying high prices for something like, we keep circling back to tomatoes, but you know, when we're paying high prices for tomatoes, what's actually the farmer experience?
You know, the normal process is that in case of perishables, farmers get about 1/3 of what the consumer pays. 1/3. Tomatoes, onions, potatoes, roughly. When there is a glut of those commodities, farmer gets even 1/4 or 1/5 of what the consumer is paying. But when there is a spike, then everybody gains in the chain. Farmer also gets a good price, but the intermediaries, they make a mullah.
So the share of the farmer in the higher prices, 1/3, doesn't really kind of go up dramatically.
It goes up a little bit, but in absolute terms, the largest chunk is taken away by the intermediaries, because they are the ones who are dealing with you and me, retailers, because their wastages and other things also have to be seen.
There's a very broad question, but since we've seen this come up again and again, climate change is here to stay. Extreme weather conditions are here to stay. Do we need to be thinking about changing our food growing, food eating patterns?
I don't think that will happen. The more realistic thing is invest more in research and development of the seeds which are going to be more climate resilient. They can bear heat waves. They can also survive under flood conditions. So what we are spending on agriculture R&D is peanuts. We give 2 lakh crores of subsidy on fertilizers, but we don't spend even 20,000 crores on agriculture R&D. The returns there are very, very high. So I would say the ICAR budget, Indian Council of Agriculture, budgeted amount this year is 9,500 crores. That needs to be doubled simply to cope up with this.
And that's just the starting point.
So you have to focus on R&D. Secondly, you need to know how to use your water well. When there is a flood, how to store it, charge your groundwater through check dams and other means, and when there is a drought or heat conditions, how to use that. So water management will require a reorientation. I don't think your and my consumption patterns are going to change.
Okay, well said. Final question. The Reserve Bank of India, it's charged with sort of mapping, managing inflation. Eye on the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have its sort of eye on the ball? What kind of, again, unfair question to put to you, but surely we can start anticipating some RBI action now.
This is interesting that Reserve Bank of India is to tame inflation. It's in their mandate. And their Lakshman Rekha is 6% on the upper band, 4% as normal and 2% minimum. Unfortunately, our CPI basket, food is 45.9% weight, food and beverages. Whereas in US, food is only 14% weight. Now how RBI can handle tomato inflation? I had done a piece earlier, tomato humbles RBI. That was last year. I would say tomato humbles RBI yet again this year. What can they do? They have to work very closely with the government, because this food and the shocks that will come from climate change, RBI cannot handle. It is ultimately the government's responsibility, and therefore buffer stocking policy, the trade policy, and buffer stocking of water, that's going to be...
So you're saying there's a rationale to actually changing the composition of the CPI?
CPI needs to be changed because we are still working with a consumption basket of 2011. That's too old. Our consumption patterns have changed, and I think we need to update the very weights in the CPI basket, because we are overestimating the inflation because of the high weight of food in the consumption basket, which is based on 2011 consumption survey. I think by 2023 those weights have dramatically changed.
Well, actually you've presented a whole bunch of solutions. So the reality check, Dr. Gulati, thank you very much for presenting us with that when it comes to food in India, and also for mapping things that the government could do, could prioritize, which will actually bring meaningful change on the ground for producers and for consumers. Thank you for joining us on Serious Business on NDTV.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on NDTV. Thanks.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening, not in some far-off distant land or some million.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Rishika Barua. The big story we're tracking tonight is from Manipur, where 2 Kuki People's Alliance MLAs have withdrawn support from the Biren Singh government, and 6 police personnel have now been suspended in connection with the viral video. Ratnadeep will join us with all the very latest from Ground Zero. Let's quickly first get you the headlines. 2 Kuki People's Alliance MLAs withdraw support from the Biren Singh government. Is he losing support in his own government? This as the death toll in the Manipur violence has now risen to 6. The centre has rushed more troops. It's day 4 of the demolition drive in New. The BJP slams the Aam Aadmi Party leader who has been named in this violence. This as in New today, the police and CPI MPs faced off against each other after MPs were stopped from entering violence-hit New. A shocker from Uttar Pradesh as 2 minors were tortured. 2 minor boys were forced to drink urine. They were tortured with green chilies rubbed on their private parts. All of this because of suspicion of theft. Staking claim for the NCP name and symbol. Sharad Pawar camp responds to Ajit Pawar camp plea, says there is no divide in the NCP. This is what Camp Sharad Pawar has told the ECI. It's an NDTV exclusive that Sharad Pawar continues to maintain that there are no NCP factions. After much back and forth, the Pakistan Foreign Ministry clarifies that Pakistan will play the Cricket World Cup in India. And let's go right across to Ratnadeep for the very latest. So Ratnadeep, it's a setback for the Biren Singh government with their ally, the Kuki People's Alliance. 2 MLAs now withdrawing support. What's the latest?
That's right. In fact, this is an interesting political move, although this is not a surprise to people who really follow Manipur politics, because you can see the Kuki leadership really hardening its stand, and these 2 MLAs are part of the 10 Kuki MLAs, which also includes 7 from the BJP, who have demanded for a separate administration for the Kuki or the tribal dominated areas. So even after this withdrawal of support by this two MLAs, the Biren Singh government otherwise has a majority support, so there is no threat to the government. Remember, 10 MLAs, including 7 from the BJP, have demanded 7 separate administration, and in past, there is murmur inside the BJP in Manipur that there are about 10 MLAs who are against Mr. Biren Singh. However, if you put these two together and the 5 Congress MLAs, still the Biren Singh at this moment perhaps has the support of around 33 to 34 MLAs. So the magic figure in a 60-member assembly is 31. So therefore, at this moment, watchers say that there is no threat to the Biren Singh government in Manipur. However, in an interesting move, Centre has actually rushed 10 companies, additional companies of central forces to Manipur after yesterday's violence, where 6 people have been killed. And in another important development, Manipur police has actually suspended 5 policemen, including the officer in charge of the Nongpok Sekmai police station. This is the same police station under Thobal district, where under whose jurisdiction actually the issue of viral video had happened. The place of occurrence of the place of occurrence where those 2 tribal women were paraded naked is under this police station, and they have alleged in their FIR that they were actually rescued by the police and then handed over to the mob by the police, and therefore the state police has initiated an investigation led by a IGP of the state police, and these policemen have been suspended from duty.
All right, Ratnadeep, thanks very much for joining us with that comprehensive update on everything that's really happening in Manipur. Remember, it's a significant development. Like Ratnadeep is saying, numerically, the 2 Kuki People's Alliance MLAs withdrawing will not affect the strength of the Biren Singh government on the floor of the Manipur Assembly. But at the same time, it is a strong symbolic registration of protest. And does this, in fact, now indicate that slowly and steadily, 3 months since the violence in Manipur continues, is the Biren Singh government really losing face among his own people? In Manipur, meanwhile, like I said, the spate of ethnic unrest has continued for 3 months now. And Saturday, that's yesterday, saw the deadliest attack in a fortnight. 6 people have now confirmed died in the violence, and over a dozen people have been injured. And a massive army combing operation is currently underway, with more forces now being rushed to Manipur. Ratnadeep has this report.
Deserted streets in Manipur's capital Imphal on Sunday morning, as day curfew was not relaxed for the first time this month. At least 6 people were killed and at least 16 others were injured in Bishnupur-Churachandpur violence on Saturday. Those injured are being treated at Churachandpur Hospital.
Pumpi ki kam masanga bom kam na te nang kha loi pa khan va phelina phelna kha ning sopo kha mo dekha ki sokha ka hiu mi pathum khat so mo na be den mo bangma chu khoti serious lo operation chu chai tu hi ki ngang mai discharge de.
Saturday also saw women vigilante groups protesting in Imphal over the gruesome killing of 3 men, including a father's son Deol and their neighbor at Kwakta in Bishnupur district, only few miles from the volatile borders with Churachandpur district.
अपने पत्नी से बातचीत कर रहा था, वो कह रहा था कि आज तो बहुत सन्नाटा है, हमें डर लग रहा है। तो मैंने कहा रिलीफ कैंप पे चलो, लेकिन पिताजी ने नहीं माना, इसलिए वो रिलीफ कैंप पे नहीं गया। लेकिन मैं अपने मायके में रह रही थी, तब फोन आया था किसी ने गोली मार दिया है। नरेंद्र मोदी जी भी मैं कहना चाहती हूँ, वो अभी तक क्या कर रहा है, हमारे सरकार बीरेन भी क्या कर रहा है, दोनों हमारे लोग मरने के लिए वो देख रहा है क्या हुआ, कितना मरे है।
Retaliatory attacks soon started. Armed miscreants reportedly opened fire, mortar shells and grenades in Kwakta's 2 neighboring villages, Faujang and Songdu, which falls in Churachandpur district, killing 2 people and injuring few others. Saturday was among the deadliest days of Manipur violence, which is inching closer to 100 days now. Centre has sent 10 more companies of central forces to Imphal to add to the existing massive deployment of about 120 companies. The army has also launched a massive operation along the border areas between the hills and the valley region. With BM Sanju in Imphal, in Guwahati, Ratndeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Well, it's been 3 months and counting, and still no respite from the ethnic violence that continues to claim innocent lives in Manipur. It's a story we will continue to track very closely. Let's shift our focus now to Haryana, where a massive demolition drive against illegal constructions in Nu has become the latest flashpoint between the two communities in the violence-hit state. The Nu administration has now brought in bulldozers. In fact, this is day 4 of bulldozers in Nu. Today, the Sahara Hotel was in fact razed in the demolition drive. Nearly a dozen shops, including medical stores, had been razed on Saturday. Shanties of migrants living in Tauru, about 20 kilometers away from the violence-hit Nu, had also been razed earlier this week for alleged encroachment on government land. 50 to 60 structures in different areas have been demolished so far. Many people have fled, fearing arrests. Meanwhile, the Nu SDM has said that the houses being demolished did belong to those who had a role in the communal clashes.
In the aftermath of the violence in Haryana's Nu, a grieving brother breaks down while remembering Pradeep, reportedly a Bajrang Dal worker who was killed by a mob on his way home.
जब से वो मैं पैदा हुआ, मुझे बच्चे की तरह पाला, उसमें यहाँ पे लेके आया, मुझे रखा, मेरे बच्चों को भी पालता था, वो मैंने माँ बाप को भी, भाई को पढ़ा, तो सब कुछ वो ही करता था मेरा। उसके बिना मुश्किल हो रहा है बहुत ज्यादा। मेरे माँ बाप मरने की कगार पे पहुंच रहे हैं, उसके बिना कुछ भी पॉसिबल नहीं हो पा रहा सर। बहुत ज्यादा समस्या का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, पता ही नहीं चलता रहा। सब सो के उठता हूँ तो लगता है वो यहीं होगा, देखे हूँ उसको, लेकिन पता चलता है वो तो है ही नहीं है। कभी उसका फोन मिलाने लगता हूँ फोन से अपने, पता चलता है वो है ही नहीं है। मैंने अपने हाथों में उसका दम टूटते देखा है सर, मेरे हाथों में दम तोड़ा है उसने। बहुत ज्यादा परेशान है सर, पूरा परिवार बहुत टूट गया है, सब कुछ खत्म हो गया सर हमारा।
This is the Sahara Hotel that has been demolished by the authorities.
Meanwhile, on the 4th day of the government's demolition drive in Nu, this 3-story hotel, where stones were allegedly pelted from during the Jal Abhishek Yatra, came crashing down like a house of cards. Akbar's shop has also turned to rubble in Haryana government's demolition spree that saw nearly 50 shops, medical stores and over 250 shanties razed to the ground. While the administration says that these structures belong to immigrants who were allegedly involved in the violence, many like Akbar say they had nothing to do with the violence.
इनके लिए 1-2 बार पहले भी नोटिस दे दिया गया कि भाई ये दुकान अवैध कब्जा बना रखी है, इनको हटाओ यहाँ से। मेरे 8-10 सदस्य हैं। अच्छा। हाँ, बच्चे हैं, रोजी रोटी चलती थी अच्छा। अच्छा। खत्म हो गया रोजी रोटी, क्या करें?
The government says that these are illegal immigrants occupying government land and are responsible for the communal violence.
वीडियोस में क्लियर देख रहे हैं, वो मीडिया के जो आपके द्वारा प्रोवाइड किए गए वीडियो हैं, उन्हीं का प्रयोग करके डेमोलिशन के अंदर जो पत्थरबाजी के लिए जो बिल्डिंग यूज की गई है उनको काम में लिया जा रहा है। जहाँ तक FIRs की बात है तो अब तक 56 FIRs हमने रजिस्टर कर ली हैं और 147 के आदमी आसपास अरेस्ट हो रही है, ऑनगोइंग प्रोसेस है।
An eerie silence now in Nu, with heavy deployment of police and paramilitary forces and prohibitory orders in place. But the worst hit are the migrant workers, now left without work.
तो बैठे और फिर हंगामा हो गया।
बच्चे भी घर पे डर रहे कि मम्मी पापा आप घर पे आ जाओ, इस वजह से हम लोग जा रहे हैं। हमारे भी बच्चे हैं, इस वजह से जा रहे हैं, नहीं तो हम लोग काय को जाते। अब हम तो परदेश में डले, इस वजह से डर रहे कि पता नहीं यहाँ पे क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा आगे चल के, इस वजह से गाँव जा रहे हैं। 8-10 दिन देख लेंगे, अगर शांत हो जाएगा तो ठीक है आएंगे, नहीं होगा तो ठीक है नहीं आएंगे बस।
It has been almost a week since the violence took place. Nothing much has changed. While the authorities say that the situation has improved, the streets of Nu tell us a different story. In Nu, with camera person Pooja Arya, Tanishq Punjabi for NDTV.
And a shocking story from Uttar Pradesh, where 2 minor boys in Siddharthnagar district were made to drink urine and green chilies were rubbed in their private parts on suspicion of theft. The victims are 10 years old and 15 years old. Horrifying videos of the sickening assault showed the boys being made to eat green chilies and gulp it down with a bottle of urine. A group of men could be heard abusing them and threatening to beat them up if they didn't go through with the torture.
हमारे बच्चों के साथ में खरपट्टी चौराहे पे चोरी का इल्जाम लगाया गया है
और उसके साथ में इतना घिनौना हरकत की है लोगों ने, यहाँ तक कि गुप्तस्तान में जो हरा मिर्च होता है उसको डाले हैं, पेट्रोल से इंजेक्शन लगाया गया है और पेशाब पिलाया गया है। जो मेन 2 अपराधी हैं वो दोनों भी गिरफ्तार नहीं हुए हैं और हमारा पुलिस से यही कहना है, प्रशासनिक में कहना यही है कि जितना जल्दी हो सके वो दोनों को गिरफ्तार पहले कीजिए या उसके पूरे परिवार को गिरफ्तार किया जाए। अगर वो गिरफ्तार हो जाते हैं, उन्हें कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दी जाए, तभी हम संतुष्ट होंगे पुलिस वालों से, वरना हम पुलिस वालों को दोषी ठहराएंगे।
And in the big story from the world of sport, Pakistan will play the World Cup in India. The Foreign Ministry has released a statement saying that Pakistan's decision shows constructive, responsible approach and has, however, highlighted the fact that Pakistan has a deep concern about the security of their players in the Cricket World Cup that's going to be held in India later this year. And in the statement, they've also put out the fact that Pakistan expects full security for their team. After much back and forth, while expressing concern over security, Pakistan will play the Cricket World Cup in India. And our special story tonight, a new book on the legendary actor Irfan Khan is out. Irfan, A Life in Movies, gives us more of Irfan through the perspective on people who knew him closely, his friends, directors, co-actors and collaborators. NDTV's Mohammad Asim caught up with author Shubhra Gupta and Irfan's wife, Sutapa Sikdar, to get an insight into the man behind the memorable screen actors.
Hello and welcome to this very special conversation. There are very few people who, when they go away or pass away, leave such a void that this is not just possible to fill. And they leave so many people, not just their close ones, but people who they've touched through their work. They just leave them so sad and shocked. One such man was Irfan Khan. And today I hold this book in my hand by Shubhra Gupta. Obviously, we could never get enough of Irfan. This book tries to give us some more of him. Joining me today is Shubhra Gupta, the author herself, and very special guest, Sutapa Sikdar, wife of Irfan Khan. So Shubhra, first to you. Let's talk about the book. How did it start?
It started because my friend Mimi, who's also the literary agent on the book, she reached out to me very soon after Irfan very sadly passed away and asked whether I would like to be working on a book on Irfan, and I said that there are already so many books out on him, so why should we do another one? And she said, she said to me that this would be a book from the perspective of a long-time film critic who's been looking at his work for a long time. From television, in fact, to cinema. And I thought about it, and then I figured that this really is a void that someone must fill, and yes, I said fine, I will work on it. Yeah.
So basically, you have interviewed a whole lot of people. I think 40 of them for this book around there. So it must be a long, winding, taxing process. I mean, did you meet everyone personally, or?
No, actually, this was during lockdown, when all of us were sitting at home during COVID, and I mean, you can call it being fortunate or call it the time that it was. I think it was really a time out of time when we didn't know what to do with ourselves, when we were all locked down. And this really sad occurrence happened. Irfan's passing was not something that, it was not as if, we didn't know that he was struggling with a debilitating illness, but we all hoped, I think, somewhere hoped that he would, overcome this. But when it happened, and when I think that part of that grief was what we were feeling when the lockdown happened. And so most of the people I reached out to, almost all of them said yes to me, and they were all across a screen from me, because I spoke to them not in person. Nobody could go out of their homes, forget about traveling to another city. So they were all in their homes, they were all in between things, so they were generous enough to give me their time, and they shared their thoughts and their innermost feelings. So yeah.
So of all these people who obviously had known Irfan very well, had worked with him and collaborated with him, so who were the people that surprised you the most, or gave you the most emotional content for the book?
Emotional content. Okay, I think everybody was very moved and very, very saddened by his passing. But I think in my conversations with both Vishal Bhardwaj, who kept me waiting for months, and I think Homi Ajania, who was the director of the film that he was shooting when he was unwell, both of them were visibly overcome during the interview, and both said how difficult it was for them to actually have this conversation. In fact, Vishal kept me waiting not because of any other reason, but he said that he was finding it really difficult to talk about Irfan's passing because for obvious reason that they were very close, and he was still finding it really difficult to use the past tense for an actor that he loved and admired.
Come back to you for one more thing, but Shuttapa, it's been over 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's difficult to come to terms with it, but now has life moved on?
Life moves on because the clock goes on.
Yeah.
You can't stop time, right? So whether I like it, don't like it, the calendar changes, the pages of the calendar change. So in that way, life has to move on. Whether I have moved on or not, I'm not so sure. Sometimes I try this effort to move on. Sometimes I again go to step backwards. That's how it is.
Okay. So let me ask you that we've seen Irfan on screen. So we got to see Ranvijay and Hasil, we got to see Maqbool, we got to see Pan Singh Tomar, we got to see Ashok Ganguly, and the list goes on. But you have lived with Irfan. You knew Irfan, right? So of all these characters, who would you say was closest to Irfan, or was more of Irfan, or Irfan was totally different?
You know, I will take a very name of a film which is not so celebrated. It's called Karma. I would see Karwa's character, which Irfan played, is closest to Irfan.
Oh, lovely. So one more thing, that obviously Irfan, the way he portrayed his characters, he was the character. I mean, we never saw Irfan there. We saw a life and blood character, living and breathing character on the screen. So when he came back, did you ever feel that the character has come back and not Irfan? And you during the course of that movie shooting, you were living with that character or not the Irfan you knew?
You know, there was a continuous process, which I would rather say in NSD I lived with the character more. He then, in the passage of time, he could kind of distinguish between a character and personality. So I don't think he generally came home with the same character. It was in his own space, he was that character, even at home in his room, but not with us. Like, he would suddenly not start behaving like that character, no.
Okay, one, if you don't mind, a personal touch a bit, that you obviously sacrificed your own career and ambitions so that Irfan could become what Irfan became and he could fly. And I remember Babil talking about it in an interview, that Baba was Baba because Mama was Mama. So did you ever feel that any regret, or you just took it in your stride and decided to be that way?
You know, I have no regrets whatsoever. But, and Babil puts it because he loves me so much. So he sees it, my mother could have been so successful. And for them, success is, sab paper mein interviews aa rahe hain. You know, you are like famous in that way. I feel I'm very successful. You know, I'm very successful as a family maker, as a support system to something which was actually creative at home. Our home was a creative buzz. So why do I need to prove that Shuttapa has to be known as Shuttapa? I didn't have that urge always, you know. I'm not the ambitious types at all. But I never felt that I am like, you know, I am forced to. It was my choice. If I was forced, then I will feel that, oh my God, you know, stifled. I managed and I loved it. I loved reading Irfan's scripts. And he wouldn't also not read it. You know, कि पहले तुम पढ़ लो सारे. फिर मैं पढ़ के, I loved that. Every day some new writer has written in some new nuance. I enjoyed that process.
Lovely. So Shubhra, in the end, you've written this book. You have spoken to so many people who've known Irfan so closely, along with Shuttapa. So now, how would you describe Irfan? I mean, did you know him personally first?
I've only met him a couple of times, and that too very briefly, once on a set long back. While he was shooting here in Delhi, and I happened to be where he was, and it was just a brief greeting and a hello. And after that, some years later at a film festival the post-film festival party kind of thing, where I spent a few minutes with him, but no, I didn't know him beyond that at all. I knew him through
So
his
after
work.
writing this thick book on Irfan, if I ask you to kind of describe him for our viewers in a sentence or two, what would you say?
I would say that he was the kind of actor who I not just me actually, I will dial back on what I've just said. I think we really liked to watch him, loved watching Irfan because he had the capacity to surprise us. As a long-time film critic, somebody who's been doing this for such a long time, I feel that unless an actor or a performer has something new in their arsenal, they end up repeating themselves, and then it becomes a chore, not just for the actor to do what he's doing, but for the audience to see the same thing. Irfan was one of the few people that I encountered in my cinematic the viewing of cinema journey, who had the capacity to surprise me. I looked forward to every performance that he did. Yeah.
Exactly, we looked forward to every performance that Irfan came up with, and sadly he's not with us, but he has left a body of work that will be celebrated for generations. And in the end, I can only say that we are lucky that we lived in the era that Irfan acted. Thank you, both of you.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know. Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates probably.
Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai?
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं.
The NDTV News Network
that informs, inspires, and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt, and that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे, हर रोज, हर हफ्ते, अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust.
ममता जैसी सुंदर लड़की ऑफिस में हो तो घराना किसे पसंद होगा ना?
कोई लड़का और लड़की साथ में काम कर रहे हो तो उनके बीच कोई चक्कर चल रहा है ऐसा जरूरी नहीं।
ये हो गई हमारी फैमिली की हालत। सबके लिए तुमने बहुत जी लिया, अब तुम अपने लिए भी जीना शुरू करो।
Watch Kutch Express only on Shemarumi app. Subscribe now.
मैं चाहना कि खिडारी ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਖੇਡ ਰਹੇ ਹੋਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੀ ਆਰਥਿਕਤਾ ਦੀ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਵਧੀਆ ਖੇਡਣਗੇ।
ਬਾਕਸਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਬੇਟੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਬਦਲ ਕੇ ਰੱਖਤੀ।
ਨਵੀਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਸ ਆ, ਭਗਵੰਤ ਮਾਨ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਵਤਨ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਗੇਮਾਂ ਕਰਾਈਆਂ, ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਮੈਡਲ ਆਏ ਆ, ਕਾਫੀ 11 골ਡ ਆਏ ਸਾਡੇ। ਭਗਵੰਤ ਮਾਨ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ 'ਚ ਵਧੀਆ ਰੁਚੀ ਰੱਖਦੇ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਖੁਦ ਵੀ ਵਾਲੀਬਾਲ ਦੇ ਪਲੇਅਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਸ ਆ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਪਲੇਅਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਾਰਮਲ ਘਰ 'ਚੋਂ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਗੇਮ 'ਚ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਗਰੋ ਕਰਦਾ।
It's been a decade since the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act came into place. A recent report in the Mint has pointed to a 70% surge in sexual harassment complaints during the financial year 2023 as compared to the previous year. India's top IT firms and banks are in the list of companies that are reporting this huge surge in cases. Look at that list. Wipro, Infosys, Tech Mahindra, HDFC, Tech, Kotak Bank, etc. All of these top companies of India are on that list. Now, while the rise in sexual harassment cases is worrying, it also does point to a more encouraging trend, if I may say so, of cases being reported, meaning more women coming forward to fight harassment in the workplace. But should we pat ourselves on the back just yet? The answer is no. The Supreme Court recently flagged serious lapses in the implementation of the POSH Act and called it, quote-unquote, a sorry state of affairs. The court has given 8 weeks to government ministries and bodies to comply with mandates of the 2013 Act and asked for status reports on the internal complaint committees. Now, there are workplaces in India, several workplaces in India, which still do not have internal complaint committees to address complaints of sexual harassment. According to a report in the Indian Express, 16 out of India's 30 national sports federations, for instance, do not have an internal complaints committee. This is a similar story that plays out across many sectors. India's women wrestling champions led a month-long protest over sexual harassment complaints against the Wrestling Federation of India president and BJP member of parliament, Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. What has been done? Well, it's all out there in the public domain. Another striking example of the same is the Priya Ramani versus MJ Akbar case. While ultimately she did win the defamation suit that was filed against her, the allegations against him has still not been proven in a court of law. So until these incidents of sexual harassment are meted out with exemplary punishment under the POSH Act, complaints by women will continue to pile up. And while we may look at that as an encouraging trend, the question is, will justice ever truly be served? Tonight on the show, we ask, with this surge in reporting, are we really better prepared? Or are our workplaces perhaps headed in a direction that is more just, safer and equitable for the working women of India. Joining me this evening, Devina Sen-Gupta, Deputy Editor of The Mint. She is one of the journalists who's reported on this 70% surge across top companies. We have Vishal Kedia, posh expert and founder of Comply Karo. We have Priyanka Sinha, partner at a law firm, ENP Partners. Urvashi Verma, talent acquisition leader. Dr. Ranjana Kumari, women's rights activist. And Kumar Mayank, founder of leading HR and payroll software company. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us on this edition of We the People. Devina Sen-Gupta, I want to come to you first, since this is your story in the Mint, you know, on the basis of which several questions really need to be asked. According to the reports that you've analyzed, companies, and these are the biggest companies in India across banking and IT, are reporting a 70% surge in sexual harassment cases.
Right. So at first glance, the numbers are very shocking, right? Because in FY23, when you compare it with the fiscal before, the 70% surge just when companies have started going back to offices is again a horrifying number. But when you talk to people who are working on diversity councils, who are working with companies on how to increase the awareness, they say this also speaks of not just awareness of what harassment is about, but also redressal mechanisms where the employee feels safe to go and raise their objection on a platform. So this can be looked at in both ways, but nevertheless, the fact that the numbers are rising is a worrying trend.
You know, I want to begin by asking you then, Vishal Kedia, you know, the fact that these numbers are rising is a worrying trend. And while, you know, we've looked at the other side of it, which means that women are, you know, perhaps more emboldened in, you know, coming forth and reporting and fighting for their rights, it also raises questions on what this means for the culture of the workspace. In a situation where post-pandemic, now most people are back to work, we are seeing this sudden surge.
So I think it's a good trend. Sexual harassment has been happening since time immemorial. So I think so it's been happening all along. I think what one should look at it is positively, that women are coming forward. And I believe that more women coming forward will actually ensure that the number of instances of sexual harassment happening will actually go down, because this will act like a deterrent. So yes, complaints will go up, but I believe from a behavioral perspective, I think so things will improve.
No, but you know, the question then, Priyanka Sinha, if I can bring you into the conversation, is to what end? You know, you're seeing a spike in complaints, and as Vishal says, it's a positive trend because it means that more people are coming forth to register their complaints, and therefore, you know, hopefully those complaints are met with some kind of justice. The question is, with complaints piling up, is our law capable enough to actually make sure that the complainants get justice? Because what the Supreme Court has said is that it's a sorry state of affairs as far as implementation of POSH is concerned in India.
So I agree with you there. Since 2013 till now, it's been about 10 years since the Act has come into place, and ever since Vishaka guidelines were even, which is about 25 years. So if you look at how POSH is really played, I see there are certain lapses, which is with respect to now COVID, the outbreak of COVID happened. There's work from home, which is happening now. So the whole fact that, you know, people are working from home, these situations are not covered under the erstwhile provisions of the existing provisions of POSH. So that's one concern which is there. Apart from that, which I also feel reporting, which is happening, which is a trend that people are coming forward, but periodic check is something which needs to be done. And it's not a matter of, it's not for the HRs to really look into it or for the legal managers. I feel the leaders now really need to take a plunge and say that, yes, it should be a no tolerance policy. So I think that's the check one should really that should be the way forward.
You know, well, you're putting the onus on leaders to sort of lead by example, you know, to make examples of how cases like this are dealt with. And just speaking of those examples, the two examples that I cited in my introduction, which is, say, the Priya Ramani case, or what has most recently happened in the wrestlers' agitation. We've seen India's top wrestlers take to the streets and you know, demand justice against sexual harassment at the workplace. And that's, you know, if you look at how that plays out as an example, it's really not one to go by. But, you know, if I can just understand from you, Urvashi Verma, and we'll talk a little more about, what the wrestlers' agitation and what message that has sent across. But Urvashi Verma, the trend at the moment appears to be online and offline. Most companies prescribe to a hybrid work model. But the complaints of sexual harassment are not just from employees who are working offline, but even employees who are working online. And that's been one of the most shocking aspects of the story, hasn't it?
Yeah, so harassment could be online or offline or anything. It doesn't matter, because when people are, having different ways of harassing their peers or other employees in the organization, it only matters that how the internal, complaint committee, the ICC, is taking a step towards that. They should be educated enough. They should be sensitized enough to understand what is the, cause of this harassment, why this is happening, how this is happening, and then take the right measures to address that problem. So, it is basically a very high responsibility of ICC to make sure there is no misreportings happening, because there are a number of reports happening, which is a very good thing and encouraging thing. Women are and empowering other women, presenting those examples internally within the organization. See, hey, I reported this and I got this solution. Now you can also report this if you are facing reporting on behalf of each other. So this is definitely encouraging, but ICC is having a very great responsibility here, and they should be, trained and sensitized enough to take the right measurement to address the issues.
There's been, Kumar Mank, if I can bring you in here, there's been a lot of discussion and debate. In fact, the Supreme Court recently refused to entertain a PIL, which actually talked about what is the protection that is being given to those who are witnesses. And the Supreme Court's refused to intervene. Anecdotally, as somebody who understands how this works, how important is it that stakeholders like witnesses in these complaint cases are actually protected from any kind of vindictive action, especially at the behest of peers or seniors?
Well, I think it's very impertinent that they are protected. And I'll give you a good reason for this. The trend and the article itself says 70% increase in the cases. If you look at the redressal that happened in FY22, it was 95%, right? Coming to FY23, it went down to 90%. And it's not, it's the percentage of 5%, but in silos, every case matters, right? So if there's increase in, redressal not happening, right, then people start feeling that they're not protected enough. And in turn, there are more cases that are being reported, and people are still, and women at work are feeling more unsafe. So I think it's very important that redressal should be attempted and protection should be given.
Devina, as somebody who's looked at the data and, you've arrived at these figures basis companies' reports and their filings, and you've sort of analyzed the data. Is there information available in the public domain of how many of these cases are actually concluded, closed, justice been served, action been taken? I mean, is any of that data, which is not necessarily so objective, available?
Yes. So from the annual reports of about 23 of the top 30 publicly traded companies in India, about 600 plus cases have already been concluded of FY23. Now, we do not know whether these 600 cases were the rolling on cases of the previous fiscal. And if you compare it to FY22, which is the fiscal before, about 400 cases have already been concluded. So yes, the companies do also mention how many cases were resolved. But what we don't know is whether they belong to the cases of that year or the year before. Now, typically cases take, typically the timeline is about 90 days as per the guidelines, but companies often conclude before that.
All right, so that's interesting to note as well. Vishal Kedia, if I can just come to you at the moment, this is also a show where we hope to educate people about what needs to be done if you're actually being harassed at the workplace. Now, we know that companies with more than 10 employees are supposed to have an internal complaints committee. This is supposed to be headed by a woman. There's supposed to be an independent member. We have all of that information. In fact, we just put out that graphic on our screen as well for the benefit of our viewers. But I want to just ask you to put it very plainly and simply, for somebody who's watching this show and is going through sexual harassment at the workplace, what are the do's and don'ts, and how should one be approaching it?
So I think most of the organizations have to display the contact details of their committee members within the organization. So in that sense, from a legal standpoint, they should approach the internal complaint committee directly. But what we've seen is in practice is most of the organizations or the women in the organizations would either reach out to somebody in the leadership team or HR, and then they internally guide them with regards to making a complaint to the internal complaint committee. Now, having said that, there could be a possibility that the organizations need to have an internal complaint committee because they have more than 10 employees, but they don't have an internal complaint committee. To resolve that issue, the government has also made a local complaint committee in every district. So if you are harassed by an employee of an organization which does not have 10 employees, or if you are harassed by an employee of an organization which has more than 10 employees, they should have a committee, but they don't have a committee, then you are well within your rights to go and complain to the local complaint committee, which the government has formed in every district. And the information about this local complaint committee can be obtained from the district collector's office.
But this process is a tough one. It's already intimidating enough for somebody who's going through, somebody who's already facing this kind of harassment and looking for options. I want to understand from you, Priyanka Sinha, what about companies that have more than 10 employees but brazenly continue to disregard the fact that they need to have internal complaint committees? I mean, the Supreme Court most recently has highlighted this as an issue. They've in fact issued a notice to the government, to several bodies, to get an update on what the status is of these internal complaint committees. How do you deal with organizations who don't comply?
There is this compliance which is also mandatory, which talks about having workshops in organizations.
Yes.
Which is a very important thing. I think it's not something that you do only once a year. It could be something which could be an offline and an online process. It could be an orientation. It could be part of the orientation program, especially when freshers are being recruited by a company, so that there is more awareness about it. And it's a constant process. And also where I feel probably there's one thing which could come into place, like you have a grievance redressal officer, the concept is there. And it's something which companies usually adhere to. So when I meant by periodic checks, it's before the reporting. It's when an aggrieved person or somebody who's been abused, the comfort that one gets to reach out to an ICC committee. So if there is a periodic check, I think that would lead to people going and lodging the complaints. So I think that's where, people are more empathetic to hearing what the issue is about. So that's what I said, that it should not be just restricted to an HR or the ICC. That's where I meant where the leaders really need to play a role, where the promoters need to ensure that it's a no tolerance policy.
Be that as it may, Priyanka, that is a bit of an ideal kind of a situation that you're talking about. I mean, in a lot of these situations, leaders are either complicit or accused. So, just expecting that this is going to be a top-down approach that will work is a bit of an idealistic situation, isn't it? Urvashi, do you want to come in here? I mean, can this really be a self-started mechanism? Because, I mean, I'm sure as somebody who works in this space, you would probably know anecdotally better than most that it is sometimes people in top leadership positions who either are complicit or accused.
Yeah, this could be. You have rightly said, this is a very ideal situation where leaders are involved. Leaders can be, showcasing the right culture to their team members, to the organization, and let them know that what behavior is expected out of them as an employee in an organization. But in each particular case, I think employees should be empowered to reach out to ICC instead of their leaders, because sometimes, as you rightly said, leaders themselves could be an accused, and most of the time, leaders are not very comfortable making any comment because this is very, critical situation, and they are not very sure. They are not those trained people who are going to make any decision out of this. So better to encourage employee to reach out to ICC or maybe the HR at the second level. But leaders sometimes are not the right people to reach out for these critical situations.
So actually, you both are saying completely different things. But Kumar Mayank, if I can just come to you at the moment to get a sort of an understanding on, what can we do better? Does the mechanism need to further improve in order to ensure that justice is served? Because what we are seeing is this trend. Like many of you agree, it's an encouraging trend that more people are reporting. But just because more people are reporting complaints of sexual harassment doesn't necessarily mean that the workplace is more just, more equitable or safer.
Well, I'll have two takes to it because the report specifically cites 23 or the 30 Sensex companies.
Yes.
We work with SMBs. 2,000 SMBs use our platform, and they have a help desk system where a POSH can get reported. I mean, apart from managing the entirety of leave and attendance and everything. In the overall scenario, there's definitely an increase in the reporting. Now, this is important, and that's part one, because reporting is happening. Now, again, as a vendor, I can't intervene in many of these cases, but what I'm realizing, and because I go into many pitches, all these small, medium businesses, they're now looking at a change of hands, where generation one is giving the exchange of hands to generation two. Now, this new generation is more upbeat about taking these issues very seriously. In fact, they would want everything very anonymous, handling it. They are requesting us to form the policies wherein we reach out the experts here on the call. But yes, it is happening, and we are seeing 70% of our tool uptake in very new age organizations where the newer generation wants these tools there of reporting. And I think it's a good trend to have.
All right. Like I said, if you go by what the examples is, and a lot of these things are, of course, the identity of the complainants are, kept under wraps. There are several rules and regulations that govern the privacy of these individuals, but those stories or those complaints that actually, in a certain sense grab national headlines, whether it is, what happened in the wrestlers' protest, and I bring that story back to the fore once again because it's the most recent story of a case like this, and just the manner in which it was dealt with. Ranjana Kumari is back with us. Ranjana Kumari, I want to ask you, at a time when we're seeing a surge in sexual harassment cases, I mean, the whole conversation here has been around the fact that while this is an encouraging trend, that more people are coming out and reporting, it also raises several questions on whether justice is actually being met to the number of people who are coming out and reporting. And in that sort of conversation, how do we look at this recent wrestlers' protest? I mean, what has happened is out there in the public domain, where the investigation stands is out there in the public domain, and the brazenness of the accused is out there in the public domain.
Well, absolutely. I think you've raised a very, very important point, that how many women are really getting justice. And I'm coming from an experience of 40 different Government of India and private sector committees that our organization represents in. So the problem is that, this body has only mandatory and referral power, that, once you do the investigation, you can just say that you found the person guilty or not, or the complainant has been able to establish her complaint or not. And after that, the actual action has to be taken by the company's HR or, the Government of India's department's head and other people. Now, in that case, mostly the women are called back to either compromise or to say that, you take a transfer, or, why don't you move to another department? So basically, the brunt of the whole thing falls on the women herself. So that's one thing where we're not seeing the justice in the way that it should be. And so it emboldens the perpetrator of this crime that is in the office. If they are already committing this crime, they get much more emboldened by this kind of a decision. They know that nothing is going to happen. And second thing that, all the male colleagues of such people get together and in some sense or the other, now I'm talking about very high committees of Government of India where we are members on the committee, whether it is, RBI, SBI, all lots of such police institutions and Home Ministry and so many others. So I think it's important that, more complaint means more harassment is also happening. It's not that women are finding it very, friendly environment. Because after complaining, they are the ones who are getting penalized by and large. So the justice still is evading women, and you can see clearly in the wrestler's case that they are still struggling to get justice. And everything is open, it should have been open and shut and he should have been punished. But that's not what happened.
Well, I think, I'm afraid I'm completely out of time, but from this conversation, there has been an encouraging trend as far as women coming out and reporting, but I think we still have miles to go in order to ensure that justice is actually served and the workplace for women is more equitable and safe. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you all very much for joining us on this edition of We the People. Good night.
Thank you.
Family Floater.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity. Because at NDTV, trust is everything. But if you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know.
Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates probably.
Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai?
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
The NDTV News Network
that informs,
inspires,
and illuminates. Watch every side of the story here on NDTV,
because the only side we're on is yours.
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे हर रोज हर हफ्ते अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
Covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology. Bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
"23 years of the big fight." This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Raghu Raman, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know.
Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably. Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai.
Technical Guruji.
Tech Guruji. Technical Guruji.
Technical Guruji.
चलिए शुरू करते हैं.
The NDTV News Network
that informs,
inspires,
and illuminates.
NDA ally Kuki People's Alliance withdraws support from the Biren Singh government in Manipur. This as 5 police officers are now suspended over the May 4 gang rape horror. The centre sends more troops as the trust deficit persists in Manipur. Meanwhile, the Editors Guild will be sending a fact-finding team to Manipur. In violence hit Nu, the hotel used for reportedly pelting stones is razed to the ground. Meanwhile, there's politics over the Nu violence. The BJP has slammed the Aam Aadmi Party over their leader named in violence. This as there's also a police and CPI standoff in Nu. And a shocker coming in from Uttar Pradesh. 2 minors tortured and forced to drink urine on suspicion of theft. This as goons put green chilies in minors' private parts. 6 of the 8 accused are now arrested. Staking claim for the NCP name and symbol, Pawar senior camp responds to Ajit's plea. They say there's no divide in the NCP. This is what the Sharad Pawar camp tells the Election Commission. An NDTV exclusive reveals that there's no evidence of factions as per the Sharad Pawar plea. And after the much back and forth, the Pakistan team will play the ICC World Cup in India. Hello and welcome. You're watching the 10 o'clock news. I'm Vedant Agarwal. Our top story, the Manipur police has suspended 5 police personnel, including the station in charge of the area where the horrific incident of 2 women being stripped naked and paraded by a mob had taken place on the 4th of May. The officials said that immediately after the video of the incident surfaced on July the 19th, almost 2 months after the incident actually happened in May, the Manipur police had decided to suspend the station in charge of the Nongpok Sekmai police station in the Thaubul district and 4 other police personnel. Well, this also as there were many questions raised on police complicity in the horrific case. And staying with news from Manipur, NDA ally Kuki People's Alliance withdrew support from the Biren Singh government in Manipur today. The BJP-led government in Manipur lost an ally, a key ally there, even though a minority ally. But this happened over the ethnic violence raging in the northeastern state for over 3 months. The Kuki People's Alliance, which is 2 MLAs, announced their withdrawal of support. The move is unlikely to pose any threat to the Biren Singh government, but it poses serious concerns about the trust deficit over the government in Manipur, as their own allies are now questioning the Biren Singh leadership. Take a look at this ground report now, which gives you a sense of what the situation is in Manipur even 3 months after the violence first broke out.
This is an interesting political move, although this is not a surprise to people who really follow Manipur politics, because you can see the Kuki leadership really hardening its stand, and these 2 MLAs are part of the 10 Kuki MLAs, which also includes 7 from the BJP, who have demanded for a separate administration for the Kuki or the tribal dominated areas. So even after this withdrawal of support by these 2 MLAs, the Biren Singh government otherwise has a majority support, so there is no threat to the government. Remember, 10 MLAs, including 7 from the BJP, have demanded 7 separate administration, and in past there is a murmur inside the BJP in Manipur that there are about 10 MLAs who are against Mr. Biren Singh. However, if you put these 2 together and the 5 Congress MLAs, still the Biren Singh at this moment perhaps has the support of around 33 to 34 MLAs. So the magic figure in a 60-member assembly is 31. So therefore, at this moment, watchers say that there is no threat to the Biren Singh government in Manipur. However, in an interesting move, Center has actually rushed 10 companies, additional companies of central forces to Manipur after yesterday's violence, where 6 people have been killed. And in another important development, Manipur police has actually suspended 5 policemen, including the officer in charge of the Nongpok Sekmai police station. This is the same police station under Thaubal district, where under whose jurisdiction actually the issue of viral video had happened. The place of occurrence of the place of occurrence where those 2 tribal women were paraded naked is under this police station, and they have alleged in their FIR that they were actually rescued by the police and then handed over to the mob by the police, and therefore the state police has initiated an investigation led by a IGP of the state police, and these policemen have been suspended from duty.
And well, moving now to our other big focus, the aftermath of the communal violence in Haryana. On the 4th day of the government's demolition spree, and violence hit New, the hotel, which was reportedly used for stone pelting during the Jal Abhishek Yatra on the 31st of July, when communal violence first broke out, was razed today. This also as homes, shops, including medical stores, and over 250 shanties were demolished earlier. These shanties belonged to immigrants. There's politics over it as well. The BJP slammed the Aam Aadmi Party for a leader of the party being named in the violence, and a dramatic face-off also today between top police officials and CPI MPs who claimed they were stopped from entering New, the epicenter of the violence. But on the ground, heavy police deployment continues, and many migrant workers who claim they have nothing to do with the violence are left helpless with their shops and homes demolished. In the aftermath of the violence in Haryana's New, a grieving brother breaks down while remembering Pradeep, reportedly a Bajrang Dal worker who was killed by a mob on his way home.
जब 6 गोवाल में पैदा हुआ, मुझे बच्चे की तरह पाला, उसमें यहाँ पे लेकर आया, मुझे रखा, मेरे बच्चों को भी पालता था वो, मैंने माँ बाप को भी, भाई को पढ़ा तो सब कुछ वही करता था मेरा। उसके बिना मुश्किल हो रहा है बहुत ज़्यादा। मेरे माँ बाप मरने की कगार पे पहुँच रहे हैं, उसके बिना कुछ भी पॉसिबल नहीं हो पा रहा सर। बहुत ज़्यादा समस्या का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, पता ही नहीं चलता रहा। सब सो के उठता हूँ तो लगता है वो यहीं होगा, देखे हूँ उसको, लेकिन पता चलता है वो तो है ही नहीं है। कभी उसका फ़ोन मिलाने लगता हूँ फ़ोन से अपने, पता चलता है वो है ही नहीं है। मैंने अपने हाथों में उसका दम टूटते देखा है सर, मेरे हाथों में दम तोड़ा है उसने। बहुत ज़्यादा परेशान है सर, पूरा परिवार बहुत टूट गया है, सब कुछ खत्म हो गया सर हमारा।
This is the Sahara Hotel that has been demolished by the authorities.
Meanwhile, on the 4th day of the government's demolition drive in Nuh, this 3-story hotel, where stones were allegedly pelted from during the Jal Abhishek Yatra, came crashing down like a house of cards. Akbar's shop has also turned to rubble in Haryana government's demolition spree that saw nearly 50 shops, medical stores and over 250 shanties razed to the ground. While the administration says that these structures belong to immigrants who were allegedly involved in the violence, many like Akbar say they had nothing to do with the violence.
इनके लिए 1-2 बार पहले भी नोटिस दे दिया गया कि भाई ये दुकान अवैध कब्जा बना रखी है, इनको हटाओ यहाँ से। मेरे 8-10 सदस्य हैं। अच्छा। हाँ, बच्चे हैं, रोजी रोटी चलती थी अच्छा, खत्म हो गया रोजी रोटी, क्या करें।
The government says that these are illegal immigrants occupying government land and are responsible for the communal violence.
वीडियोस में क्लियर देख रहे हैं, वो मीडिया के जो आपके द्वारा प्रोवाइड किए गए वीडियो हैं, उन्हीं का प्रयोग करके डेमोलिशन के अंदर जो पत्थरबाजी के लिए जो बिल्डिंग यूज की गई है उनको काम में लिया जा रहा है। जहाँ तक FIRs की बात है तो अब तक 56 FIRs हमने रजिस्टर कर ली हैं और 147 के आदमी आसपास अरेस्ट हो रही है, ऑनगोइंग प्रोसेस है।
An eerie silence now in Nuh, with heavy deployment of police and paramilitary forces and prohibitory orders in place. But the worst hit are the migrant workers, now left without work.
तो बैठे और फिर हंगामा हो गया।
बच्चे भी घर पे डर रहे कि मम्मी पापा आप घर पे आ जाओ, इस वजह से हम लोग जा रहे हैं। हमारे भी बच्चे हैं, इस वजह से जा रहे हैं, नहीं तो हम लोग काय को जाते। अब हम तो परदेश में डले, इस वजह से डर रहे कि पता नहीं यहाँ पे क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा आगे चल के, इस वजह से गाँव जा रहे हैं। 8-10 दिन देख लेंगे, अगर शांत हो जाएगा तो ठीक है आएंगे, नहीं होगा तो ठीक है नहीं आएंगे बस।
It has been almost a week since the violence took place. Nothing much has changed. While the authorities say that the situation has improved, the streets of Nuh tell us a different story. In Nuh, with camera person Pooja Arya, Tanishq Punjabi for NDTV.
So, well, whether it's Gurugram or Nuh, the worst hit are the migrant workers who are now forced to leave. Short break now, come back for more news on the other side.
बीमारी हुई तो
That was fast, right? But tech is evolving even quicker than our abilities to adapt. And that's how I like to roll. Technology तो आप सभी के पास है, but what you need is everything else. मेरा नाम है गौरव और अब मैं आ गया हूँ NDTV नेटवर्क पे, हर रोज, हर हफ्ते, अब आपके और पास. Go beyond the now.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people.
From breaking news to in-depth analysis,
covering the latest developments
across politics, business and technology, bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
"23 years of the big fight." This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
In a world filled with noise, we bring you news that you can rely on with accuracy and integrity, because at NDTV, trust is everything.
If you want to control inflation, you need to play the trade policy.
Perishable items, what happens?
Perishable, this is a challenge.
What to expect in the coming months?
From second or third week of August, the prices will start coming down. Onion is going to give you tears.
A debate has many facets, perhaps no one right answer. Left, right, and center. Conversations that get to the core of the debate.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
My name is Captain Rahul Gandhi MP, and I have been fortunate to have had a career that has spanned 3 different domains. Whether it was the authoritarian style of leadership in the armed forces, or the mostly incentive-driven environment of the corporates, or the process-driven style of the government, I found that there were some principles of leadership that are present in all the environments. And these valuable lessons of leadership can be learned from literally thousands of leaders who are all around us. And we will meet them all on Wisdom of Leaders.
We have a surprise for you. We're going to ask a bunch of you some special questions, and every correct answer is going to reveal what our surprise is.
I don't know.
Satya Nadella?
Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates, probably.
Nehru Place. Saket.
Saket.
Mumbai?